You've seen my like loose papers, like almost random scribbling that I like picked out from my business card holder I have. It doesn't fit more than like 7 business cards. This one's like more like your a lot of times are like they should fix the problem that's causing it, but some people are still because if they like not just DM, but if they like enter their information at all and then do it like like entering into it. And that will still send so it'll be like pending what your partner depending on so it is a little bit of their human error. It is now. Before it wasn't. At least we know what the issues are so they can be fixed. Yeah. No, it's not. People are like, some people are very more than that. We were talking about it. I think it's like, maybe oh yeah, because we tipped down at 36. Yeah. She's like in the zone, just thinking of. I mean, she doesn't even get up from her desk. I don't think I've ever seen her eat or go to the bathroom. She goes to like she takes Kenzie out for a walk. Okay. And I think maybe that's what she like grabs. I think it's just like yeah, I've never seen her eat, drink water, or go to the bathroom. She just sits there and I'm like, amazing. I know. Especially for like a writer. I used to do it too. I have to like otherwise I just like run out of steam. Yeah, I do too, and I'm working most nights anyways. I think it. Yeah, I like to just take a break. For 4 years, I worked at the I used to do the gym in the morning, and I would take off between 3 and 6 o'clock depending on the time of year. And like, sometimes I go out to dinner and I get back home. It's funny because you know oh, that's right, you're all your crazy. Yeah. Oh, and it's this first. I think this is like my week. I'm sleeping so much. I keep waking up. I'm so used to the added schedule. So I'm looking forward to sleeping through the night. I'm not used to being like out of the exactly. So I work from like playing bed. Yeah, I was like wake up. I might wake up early, but I'm like in my bed when I'm working. Yeah. You usually have to get out of bed at like 8:30. Like go somewhere and like it's like going up. Me too. I just quit. It's like this morning. Not because I actually want to just and I feel just so much happier. I realized I was in an office like a couple days a month, maybe. Like super corporate at ADC, and it was so nice. But they had other stuff to do that were really I was sort of, not that I didn't expect to, I just can't. Yeah, but they really have to. I feel like they really have to. We're gonna have to try hard because everyone's gonna be nice to them. They're starting not like stepping on each other's toes. So I feel like when they're really careful, so it's really so like I find it hard to find any stuff. I want enough people to go. What's the who you hire? No, I mean like in terms of like what they want. I mean it's just I'm impressed. my business partner went to various air shows. I spent the rest of the time alone. One of the big next one to go with. I mean, she's all over the place.
Good morning, everyone. Don't want to take your seats. We're getting ready to get started. Hello. How is everyone this morning?
Very good.
Good. How incredible is this venue? I cannot get over these views. Who came from outside of New York City this morning? Amazing. Where did you come from?
I lived in Edgewater.
In New Jersey. Okay. Where did you come from?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Fantastic.
Miami.
Miami. Anyone else come from out of state? A few people in the back. Where do you come from? Pennsylvania. Fantastic. Well, we are so thrilled to have you here. And to kick us off, our hosts for this morning, Shelly Dallas from the Female Quotient, is joining us with SAP Next Gen to bring us into this beautiful space. So to kick us off, give a few words from Shelly.
Hey, how are you guys doing? Exciting? So for an old lady like me, 57, I am so excited to see all of you. What I used to call millennials until I heard you hate the word millennials. And so we're not going to do that anymore. We need a new name. How about per campusers, which is fantastic. It's really exciting. I'm in the business of equality, and most importantly, I am in the business of helping women find their voice, know their value, own their strength, stand in their ambition, and truly be able to use words like money and power and not think those are taboo words. You will never be successful in anything you do if you can't own the words money and power. You can also be nice at the same time. They all go together. So we're thrilled to have you all here. And we talk about leadership, and I'm going to start by saying leadership is not about age, it's about action. You don't need to be the CEO of a company to make shit happen, right? It happens when you raise your hand and say, I can be better, I can make a difference, and most importantly, believing in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. And that is the most important thing that I hope you take away from today is knowing how much power you have and how we all have the opportunity to activate change. And that is what we all think about. You don't have to take big steps, take any step. As long as you're taking steps forward, that's progress and bringing others with you. One of the things we saw in last Olympics was the shine theory. When you help other people rise, we all shine. And that is the most important thing to understand. We've all talked about competition. I have been the only female CEO in the top 25 my entire career. I didn't have other women to look up to that had a family and was successful at work. It was an either or. There is no 50-50. There is no work-life balance. Life is just not that neat. It's messy. You have one life with many dimensions. Your work, your family, your community, your friends, and the thing we never make a priority is ourselves. The fitness, ourselves. They all matter. And at different stages of life, you have to pick and choose. You might have to do 3 out of 5, and you can't weight them equally. You have to make those decisions. But most importantly, the one thing I've always said as we get into the workplace is to live with no regret, to have a no regret policy. You never want to look back in life and say shoulda, woulda, coulda. You can't make those things up in life. So think forward and act in the moment, and you won't miss a beat. You can still be with your family, you can still have beautiful children and be badass and successful at the top. Just do it your way, and don't look at what others are doing. And so I'm going to just go through a few things that I would love to share. But I want to share a quote from Sarah Jessica Parker that I talk about all the time. I'm obsessed with her. She says, trying to be a man is a waste of a woman. We're all necessary, men and women. But the future is not female. The future is feminine. The masculine, decisive, aggressive, assertive, linear, analytic. The feminine, nurturing, empathetic, charismatic, collaborative, visionary, visual, contextual. I can keep going. The future is feminine. There are plenty of men with feminine qualities, plenty of women with masculine qualities.
we are definitely better together. And as each and every one of you, men and women, that are here today, you're here because you're handpicked. You're handpicked as leaders. You're leading this next generation. And most importantly, you are bringing your leadership values into the future. And who you are is what we want every other leader to aspire to become. So we put a little something together, and I just want to, where's Sandra? I'm looking at you. And Ben, yes, come here. So, one of the things we've never had in the workplace is partnerships where we're interchangeable. It's just kind of unheard of. My company is called the Female Quotient. I came up with the name, first came the Intelligence Quotient IQ, then the Emotional Quotient EQ, now the Female Quotient FQ. When you put more women in any equation, there's a return on equality. One thing we have created in this Fortune 500 world is uniting on equality. We can all compete in lots of different ways. That's our secret sauce. But what we cannot compete on and what we must collaborate on is advancing equality in this world. Advancing women and advancing equality. And with that, this is really my family. And to say we are interchangeable, we can make decisions for each other and sign off. We go further, faster together than we do alone. No doubt about that. We say 1 + 1 is not 2, 1 + 1 is 11. And this is really the magic that happens here. And we travel together now. We are, one big family. Come on up. And I think, I don't know where Ann is. Ann is going to come as well. Yes. This space is SAP space, our partners in everything we do. And it is very clear that we are better together. So everyone, please say hello to our extended family.
There are also two at 6.
So when we talk about what we're doing on campus, the magic is the collective. We are creating spaces, we're creating the environments, you're creating the ambassador programs to activate, stuff on campuses. And that really is how we win and how what success really looks like. And by the way, we have fun along the way. So success doesn't always have to be linear and boring. We actually break all the rules and have a lot of fun. So here's to the family. Thank you. So I'm going to go really fast through this. Here's things that we need to understand. Purchase decisions, over 85% of purchase decisions in general are made by women, and yet 40% of women today do not see themselves in advertising. 90% of parents don't believe there's positive role models for their daughters, and by the way, also for their sons. What boys see girls being able to do is what we're perceptions for. Confidence starts at the age of 5. Confidence starts at the age of 5. Perception becomes reality. And 55% of adults believe that women are portrayed negatively in advertising today. Media defines culture. Advertisers spend a ton of money advertising on television. If you see women objectified and you don't see women in professional roles and you don't see, men in the kitchen cooking and picking up their children, that's when stereotypes form, and that's what people believe the possibilities are. And yet we know that there's a business case for equality. Everyone says that diversity is good for business. We have facts and stats that prove that diverse companies outperform those that don't. We know that gender diverse teams are more profitable and more innovative. That's where innovation comes from with diversity. If you have not seen the little clip from the Navy SEAL officer, Google Navy SEAL officer make your bed. What he says is, if you don't make your bed, if you can't do the easy things like make your bed, you certainly can't do the hard things. And even if you have a lousy day, when you come home, your bed is made, and most importantly, that bed was made by you. And they talk about the boats in the Navy. It's not the big, strong, tall guys that win. It's the boats with diversity. The tall, the short, the men, the women from all different parts of the world. Those teams outperform those that are not diverse every single time. Organizations that embrace female-specific issues have higher satisfaction, higher attention, higher attraction, higher satisfaction overall, and they elevate across all dimensions. We also know that companies that have women at the top outperform those by 34%. Fact. Check, check, check. What's the problem? According to McKinsey, If we keep going at the pace we're going and the progress that we're not making, it will take over 100 years to realize gender parity in the C-suite. You're all just entering into the workplace at different stages. This is what you can expect at the top. I'm 57, that puts me at 157 years old. I don't know if I even want to still be here at that point, but I certainly won't be actively working the way I do today. That's a really sad number. But the problem is when you think about the rules in the workplace, they were written over 100 years ago by men for men. Women just weren't in the workplace. So if you haven't seen the RBG movie, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you must see it. She talks about righting the wrong. It's not about righting the wrong, even though she's right about everything. It's not, it wasn't wrong then, it just was what it was. Women weren't in the workplace, so we didn't adapt accordingly. It's about writing for today, writing for now. What are the rules, the policies that allow all people to thrive in the workplace and bring their best selves to work? We all belong, but we need to feel like we belong. I write a column in Forbes called The Messy Middle, and it talks about how we lose our best employees, our best leaders in the messy middle. So how can we rewrite the rules so that everyone can truly bring their best selves to work? And of course, Katharine Hepburn says, if you obey all the rules, you miss all the fun. You gotta break the rules. That's why my nickname is Chief Troublemaker. I break all the rules that make no sense and write the new ones. Get rid of the junk in the trunk and just put new shit in. FQ Lounge, pop-up experiences. One of the things that we can talk a lot about is generating awareness, but action happens from creating these experiences with human interaction. People, passion, purpose. In my opinion, the most important driving forces of success in organizations today. I've built large companies, sold large companies. I have never looked at a resume. I hire for passion, I train for skill. Unless you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant. You might need to have a little more skill in those categories. But our lounges are pop-up experiences. We're doing probably upwards of 60 at big industry conferences, from the World Economic Forum, World Leaders in Davos, Switzerland, to CES, Connecting People in Technology. And our most recent initiative is to open permanent FQ lounges in university campuses with our SAP Next Gen partners in partnership with our campus, which we're really excited about. And also Girl Up, a United Nations organization around the world. The practice is about the business of equality. How do we activate solutions for change and hold companies accountable? I am so sick of talking about unconscious bias. How often do you hear about unconscious bias? Unconscious bias. If we make you aware of the fact that women, on average, are paid 80 cents on the dollar, Black women 63 cents on the dollar, Latinas 54 cents on the dollar, and if you know that the policies don't work, and there's a mommy penalty, but not a daddy penalty, and we are aware of the fact that we are not creating measurement for accountability, is that unconscious? I just made you aware of the problem. So by saying unconscious bias is holding us back from all these things and there's bias issues, that's ridiculous. So unconscious bias is an excuse. And so we are getting companies to first become conscious leaders, acknowledge the issues, and then figure out the solutions for change and hold them accountable for making a difference. We will be able to change the trajectory way sooner than 100 years from now, and hopefully make that the next 3 to 5 years, at least have equal pay for equal work. So our FQ Lounge at Campus business, we have access through our SAP partnerships to over 3,800 universities around the world in 117 countries with over 450 ambassador programs, which, her campus is going to be a huge part of everything that we do. And then really working with Fortune 500 companies on how they want to activate in each of those campuses. So we have different programs and different opportunities. And one of the things that we do is we put all of our assets in a glass box, shattering the glass, of course, it's lucite, but it's very exciting. And then we send it to the campuses and set them up and really activate this next generation, which we think is the now generation of leaders on campuses, teaching women how to run businesses, how to think about businesses in a whole new way, not by reading in a textbook, but rolling up your sleeves and doing the heavy lifting, which is the best way to learn through experiential activation. And this, most importantly, Gina Davis said this best: if you can see it, you can be it. None of us want to be in it, so we changed it. If you can see her, you can be her. Hashtag see her. We're the co-founders of the hashtag see her movement. It's gone viral. It started in the White House in the Obama administration when we were trying to bring more girls into STEM and bringing more visibility. And then we created Hidden Figures, and you started seeing the stories of women in history doing remarkable things. Women in general have been written out of history, forgotten in history. Katherine Johnson created the first trajectory to the moon for Alan Shepard. And if you haven't been following the news about NASA and the space suits, only 2 women, it was gonna be history, 2 women going to the moon together, to space together, but the spacesuit didn't fit them. There's only 2 spacesuits that could fit women, take 6 months to retrofit, didn't fit them at the 11th hour, so they had to send a man in their place. So what are we gonna do about it? Just talk about it? Hell no. We're actually redesigning the next spacesuit with girls in STEM, with female astronauts. We have the power to make a difference if we choose to make a difference. And so here's just a little snippet of what we're working on. I think we should play if I click it.
We've been working to change these stereotypes. That's why we're encouraging more girls to pursue their love for science, technology, and engineering and math. That's why we've highlighted women trailblazers and encouraged media to depict more examples of women in STEM, because it's hard to be what you can't see.
Be better fathers. Love your daughters. Be engaged. Be a better employer. Be better. Be better. Be better. Be better.
And we'll rise up. I like the waves. We'll rise up. In spite of the ache, we'll rise up. And we'll do it 1,000 times again.
This has become a viral movement. We have gotten over 90 multinational advertisers to actually be conscious of the advertising they're creating. And we're not looking for positive portrayal of girls and women, we're looking for accurate, realistic portrayals of girls and women. We want to be reflective for who we truly are. And we created a measurement called the GEM score, the Gender Equality Measure, so that every marketer, every content creator, every influencer, every media shaper, every network can start being conscious of the content they create and measuring their work, very simply. 2.5 years later, we're on every award show, giving awards to actors and actresses that truly reflect the mission that we're proposing. And I want to introduce also Heather here, who's running our campus business, working very closely with the whole of her campus team. I'm just so proud of you. This was an idea that is now turning into a really big movement on campuses, and it really takes each and every one of us bringing that passion. And I want to remind everyone, leadership is not about age. I don't care how old you are. I have a 26-year-old running my company. She's the president of my company. I care about action, passion. It's not about your head, it's about your heart. That's truly what will make you incredibly successful in anything you do, is feeling, not thinking. And I want to thank again SAP. It wouldn't happen without the pieces. We all bring a unique secret sauce to the table. And when we put our best things together, that's how change happens. That's how we can impact the next generation. That's how we can flip the script, and most importantly, flip the balance. So thank you for coming today. We're really excited about everything that you're going to share. And for you guys, I just got blown away by you. So have a great time, and we're here for anything you guys need help with. Thank you.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone, and I hope you were all thoroughly inspired by Shelley's presentation. So thank you to the female quotient at SMU Connection for hosting us and your beautiful video this morning. So my name is Windsor Western. I'm one of the co-founders of the campus. I'm here with Annie, another co-founder. Hi, I'm Stephanie. So the three of us started her campus 10 years ago. This is our 10-year birthday of the company in our dorm room at Harvard. And since then, we've been really fortunate to have found careers that we love, that fulfill us, that help college women across the country fulfill their dreams and figure out what they want to do with their careers and with their lives, and have gotten the opportunity and the privilege of working with many of you in this room to help you bring your vision for college marketing to life. So today is all about college marketing. We've got these programs that we pass out, so I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping with the front show, and then we're going to get started with the programming. So we just did our opening remarks. We're going to start our first presentation with Stephanie, our CEO, and she's going to share some original insights and data on the 2019 College Woman. We're only sharing this data with participants of the Hercules College Marketing Summit. So really thrilled that you all are here. It should be really fun and informative. Following that, we have a panel with real live college women. Can you believe it? Actual college students. So they're here, and we're going to be interviewing them here, and we've got a lot of fascinating topics, so you'll hear it straight from them. Following that, we have some influencers from her campus's influencer agency, the Influencer Collective, and they're going to be talking about influencer trends, social media, working with brands, what they love, what they hate, best practices when you're working with micro and nano influencers. We then have some amazing brand marketers who are going to share their best practices and strategies, and then I'm going to wrap things up with the Hercules Media Solution. We're all in class for the next 3 hours. We do not have bathroom breaks. You don't need a hall pass. So if you do need to go, the bathrooms are just around the corner. Just be respectful, and of course, continue to get coffee if you need a stretch break or additional snacks. Please don't fall asleep. You won't, but do whatever you need to do. One question, was anyone at the College Marketing Summit last year in the blizzard? You brave souls, thank you for coming back. We decided to move this into April because last year, I think it was February or March, and we had 8 inches of snow on the ground. So there were maybe 50 brave souls who attended. But I'm really thrilled that you're all here, and we'll kick things off with Stephanie.
Hi again, everyone. Thank you so much for all being here with us this morning. Again, I'm Stephanie Kaplan-Lewis, for campus's co-founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief. I'm really excited to have a fun and informative morning with all of you, better getting to know today's college women, the trailing millennial, and at the top of everyone's minds today, Gen Z. So we're going to be looking at the results of a large-scale survey that we conducted of thousands of women aged 16 to 24. I'm going to walk you through those results across a number of areas: psychographic, spending, health, career, social media habits, and more. Looking at what we can understand about this group as a whole, as well as where Gen Z and millennials start to diverge. Lastly, we're going to step away from the survey data and consider another kind of data, because I'm going to show you our most popular and most engaged with social media posts from this past year and see what these tell us about today's college women. Now, because this is the College Marketing Summit and its final season at college right now, it seemed only fitting that we treat part of this as our own final exam of sorts. So please join me in this quiz to see how well you really know today's college women. So for the first part of this presentation, I'm going to read off the question and then the answer choices. You can all raise your hand to vote, and then I'll reveal the answer. So do you think that today's college woman considers herself organized? Show of hands. Or disorganized? So in fact, she views herself as organized by a pretty large margin. What about this one? Do you think that today's college woman sees herself as more ambitious? Or does anyone think that she sees herself as lazy? Nope. You were right. She absolutely sees herself as very ambitious. This one might be a little trickier. Do you think that today's college woman thinks of herself as more of a party girl? Or more of a homebody? You guys are pros, absolutely. Today's college girl is not the party girl. She's home in bed with a face mask on, much more likely. And do you think that she sees herself as fit, not fit, on her way to being fit? Absolutely. She is on her way to becoming that fit person that she wants to be. And now on the political side of things, do you think that she sees herself as Republican, as a Democrat, or as neither? So this was interesting. In fact, over 2/3 of college women do identify as a Democrat. And then does she see herself as a feminist or not a feminist? So she sees herself as a feminist, so it's about 8 out of 10 college women that identify with that term. And then does she consider herself more entrepreneurial or more corporate? It's entrepreneurial. So here's what we've just learned about this woman. She's organized, she's ambitious, a homebody, who's on her way to being fit, she's a Democrat, she's a feminist, and she's an entrepreneur. So this is the psychographic profile that, as we just saw, is pretty consistent among the demographics. But on what topics does this audience actually show more diversity of thought? Now I'm going to walk you through some of the other areas where the response was more divided, even though there was still a clear majority answer. So we asked whether she sees herself as religious or non-religious. And as you'll see, more likely she was to identify as non-religious, but that was an area where it was more divided. And the same thing was true when it comes to identifying as a healthy eater or a junk food eater. Slightly over half of college women identify as a healthy eater. And when we talk about her style, is she trendy or classic? More college women identify as classic, but a lot of them would also use the word trendy to describe their style. And then we learned about her political affiliations just a minute ago, but does she see herself as political at all? A little bit over half of college women do see themselves as political. And is she high maintenance or low maintenance? According to her, she's low maintenance, though a lot of college women are also totally fine with admitting that they are more high maintenance. And then we hear a lot about this generation being activists. And in fact, about 57% of college women identify with the term activist to describe themselves. And as we think about that, we asked her, do you feel comfortable speaking out, or do you feel like you're still finding your voice? And what's incredible is that most college women feel comfortable speaking out. We learned earlier that she's organized, that she's ambitious, but when we asked whether she's more type A or more laid back, a little bit over half says they're more type A, but it's definitely more split there. And is she a shopaholic or a saver? More than half of college women identify with the term shopaholic as opposed to saver. But again, this is an area where it's a little bit more even. And then lastly, is she a self-described dreamer or a self-described realist? We have 55% of college women saying they're self-described dreamer. But again, you can see that there were a lot of college women that identified with both of those terms. So in addition to these overarching characteristics that we saw a couple minutes ago, we're fairly consistent across this group. These are the characteristics that make up her secondary profile. But again, keep in mind that while these terms did also represent the majority of college women, there were also a significant number who still answered the opposite way. But rather than just understanding the characteristics that this audience identifies with, we wanted to take it one step further to really understand how they view the world around them and their place within it. Here's what we learned. Young women are optimistic about their futures. 4 out of 5 agree with the statement, I can be anything I want to be when I grow up, which is incredible to still feel that level of optimism at this point in their life and their career. What's more is that they plan to leave their mark. 4 out of 5 also agree with the statement, I hope to change the world one day. They care deeply about feeling fulfilled at work. Over 98% agree with the statement, it is important to me to have a career that I'm passionate about. And while this might seem like an of course, it's important to recognize that even just a generation ago, this wasn't the prevailing attitude when it came to work. But these women aren't just idealistic, activist dreamers, even though those were all terms that they identified with. As Shelley touched on earlier, which is so important, these women also recognize that money is power. Aside from wanting to have a career that they're passionate about, 7 out of 10 agree with the statement, it is important to me that I make a lot of money one day. So next, we wanted to look at some of the things that, in theory, this demographic and this audience really loves and see whether, in fact, these trendy things were really true and if they love them or hate them. So we asked them, do you love it? Still loves it. Athleisure, she loves. The Bachelor, according to her, she hates, but maybe more of a love to hate kind of a relationship there. Face masks, she loves. Avocado toast, she's also still very into. Online shopping, she absolutely loves, probably at night on her phone in bed. Candles, she loves, though I'm gonna have another note about that later that's kind of interesting. And then taking online quizzes, she's still all about those, so she still loves taking online quizzes. So the audience is pretty consistent in their feelings about these items, as we just saw. But what were the trendy issues that were dividing this generation? So what things did we ask them where we didn't see a lot of agreement in terms of whether they said they loved them or they hate them? And young women were the most divided on Noah Centineo, who was almost right down the middle, and cold brew coffee. So the jury's still out on whether she wants her coffee as cold brew or not, but she definitely loves her coffee. So I don't know if there's any correlation between Noah Centineo and cold brew coffee, but we can ask that in a future study. So next we wanted to dig into pop culture a bit. So we decided to ask her about some of the major female icons of the moment and see which ones she kind of idolized or was inspired by the most. So we asked her if she would rather have lunch with Cardi B or with Ariana Grande. And she told us she'd rather have lunch with Ariana. We wanted to know if she'd rather have lunch with Nancy Pelosi or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And not surprisingly, it was AOC. And then we said, would you rather have lunch with gymnastics star Allie Raisman or with tennis star Serena Williams? And she was all about Serena. So we touched a few minutes ago on the fact that these women consider themselves political. They think of themselves as activists. But what are the causes that they actually care about the most? So these are her most important political and social issues. The first is global warming and protecting the environment, followed by sexual assault awareness and prevention, followed by gun control, followed by female reproductive rights and abortion. And one interesting note here was that when we asked them the same thing when we ran this survey a year before in 2018, gun control and global warming had actually reversed spots. So a year ago, it was gun control and global warming in the number 3 spot, while sexual assault awareness and prevention and female reproductive rights stayed consistent. So next we wanted to dig into her spending habits. We learned earlier how much she cares about making money in her job one day, and that she also considers herself a shopaholic. So this is an audience who's engaged when it comes to their money, but is also really still in need of education. 88% of these women are interested in learning more about managing their money, which is fantastic. 50% of them have student loans, and about 53% of them have a budget. 22% of them have not yet opened a savings account, and most of them are sharing expenses with their parents rather than it being paying for things all themselves or their parents paying for things entirely. So next we wanted to look at spending category by category and see in what categories do they like to save and in what categories do they like to splurge. So we asked them about different categories and said, would you rather invest in a few more expensive items in that category, aka splurge, or buy fewer less expensive items, save? A few more expensive items or more less expensive items, which would be safe. So when it comes to makeup, for her this is a splurge. But when it comes to clothing, she'd rather save. She sees her shoes as an area to splurge, but her accessories are a place where she prefers to save. And then lastly, skincare is another area where she chooses to splurge. But none of these categories were actually her biggest monthly expenditures. So where is she spending the most of her money each month? Those categories were groceries and food and eating out. So she definitely has her priorities straight. So another significant expense for college women and for anyone can be a car. So she may or may not have a car. Right now it's actually about 50% of college women that have a car, but over half of them are thinking about buying a car in the next 5 years. Next, we're going to touch on her sexual health and birth control choices. So a little over half of this group are sexually active now, and their most common forms of birth control are the pill number 1, followed by male condoms, followed by the pull-up method. But on a more positive note, 6 out of 10 of them are interested in learning more about different birth control options, so they're very open to education in this area. And unfortunately, more than a third of them aren't satisfied with their current birth control. So now we're going to talk about her social media habits, and we're going to see which different social platforms she likes the most and what she uses them for in her day-to-day life. So her favorite social platform, by and large, is Instagram. So given that, it comes as no surprise that Instagram is also what she says is the last thing that she checks before going to sleep every night. However, while a lot of people say that email is dead for this generation, for college women, it's really still a huge part of their day-to-day. When we asked her what is the first thing you check when you wake up, it wasn't Instagram or Facebook or anything else, it was still her email. And given that she's so engaged on Instagram, it makes sense that it's also the platform where she most enjoys engaging with brands. So it's not surprising that when we said, which of these apps do you use more than you did a year ago? Her answer was Instagram. And when we said, which of these apps do you use less now than you did a year ago? The answer was Snapchat. So we've talked a lot about this group as a whole. And since they're all so close in age, trailing millennials, the beginning of Gen Z, they're united on a lot of things, but there are absolutely some generational differences that start to rise to the surface as well. So what do we need to know about Gen Z specifically? This next generation is coming into focus. And more importantly, where does Gen Z over-index compared to millennials? So Gen Z is more likely to identify as political than millennials, less likely to identify as heterosexual. She's more diverse. She's more likely to agree with the statement, I hope to change the world one day. And she's also more likely to see herself running for political office, which is amazing. She cares more about racial equality. So how does this self-image that Gen Z has of themselves, that they told us the terms they identify with, actually translate into Gen Z's behavior? So Gen Z, who are more money savvy than previous generations like millennials, are getting their first credit card and their first savings account even earlier. They're getting their cell phone and their laptop sooner, but they're choosing their method of birth control later. Gen Z is more likely to have had an internship in high school, and they're also more likely to have traveled without their parents in high school, meaning that they're already travel decision makers. So next we wanted to look at what are things that millennials love more than Gen Z. And this one was just kind of fun to look through the data and see, okay, where were millennials over-indexing? Because there were a couple surprises. So millennials were more into rosé than Gen Z. They were also more likely to say that they love candles than Gen Z was. And they were much more likely to like the chain smoker. So before we wrap up the survey portion of our presentation, since we're at the College Marketing Summit and you're all marketers who want to know, how do we get this woman to pay attention to our brand? Here's what she told us in our survey. So we said, what are the most effective ways to get you to pay attention to a brand? And she told us free samples, hearing about the brand from a friend, seeing the brand at an event, Instagram ads, a site she likes writing about a brand, an influencer posting about a brand, and those are what she told us. So what really comes through loud and clear here is the importance of a really integrated multi-touch point approach. Because when you look at this list of things, it's clear to see that she's taking stock of what her friends are saying. She's absorbing what she sees on social media, and especially on Instagram. She's paying attention to the people around her and to influencers, be they bloggers or the websites that she loves to read. And she's interacting with brands IRL as well, trying product samples, experiencing them at events in order to make up her mind about her brand decisions. So we've just learned all about today's college women based on what the data tell us. So now we're going to turn to a different way of gathering data, some field research, if you will, observing the college woman in her natural habitat, aka social media. So we wanted to look at our top performing Facebook and Instagram posts from the past year and see what they would show us about today's college women. So again, these were the posts that performed the most, got the most likes, the most comments, the most engaged with on our platforms in this past year. So let's see what today's college woman is all about based on social media. So the first thing to understand about her is that she can't survive without her BFFs. Because the bonds that you form in college are truly unlike anything else. She sticks with them through thick and thin. And she protects them from making bad relationship decisions. And she just all around builds her friends up. So while we're on the topic of dating, though she wants a relationship, for the time being, the dating scene kind of sucks, and she's okay laughing about it. Because self-love is what it's all about these days anyway. And luckily, she's got the self-confidence to prove it. Because after all, she's got a social media image to maintain. She's growing up and she's excited about her future, but she also misses being a kid and is nostalgic for some of her favorite childhood memories. And though she acts like she can't wait to graduate and get out into the real world, she's a little bit sad about growing up too. Because school is important, but so is food. Food is her biggest weakness, as we just learned, when it comes to spending. And she fantasizes about curling up in her dorm room, eating one of these. Plus, she's genuinely not sure whether there's life without coffee. She's super ambitious, as we just heard, with big hopes and dreams, but she's not totally sure how to get there. But she refuses to accept that she can't have it all. Because she's super inspired to do literally everything. But when it all starts to feel like too much, she also kind of just wants to grow up to be a dog mom. Or a cool wine aunt. But at the end of the day, whether she's applying for internships or applying to business, or more likely both at the same time, first and foremost, today's college woman is all about the girl power. So thank you all so much. It's great to spend a morning with you, and I'll be happy to chat with you after during our networking time to answer any questions and explore this further. So next, I'm thrilled to invite my colleague Danielle Tulo, our campus's senior editor, to join a discussion with real college women. Welcome, Danielle.
Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Tulo, our senior editor at our campus. I'm so excited to be here today and to invite my amazing panelists of college women back here. So come on up, guys. We have some questions prepared, and there will be about 10 minutes at the end to open the audience to some questions. So if you guys want to start just by introducing yourselves and telling everyone where you go to school, your major, and any activities you're involved on campus.
So hi everyone, my name is Lauren Clementi. I'm a sophomore at Montclair State University. Currently I am the Vice President and Content Strategy Director for Campus Montclair. I'm also an area supervisor at my marketing department in our rec center, and I'm an intern of global marketing for Fibro and Model.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hedlund. I'm a senior at Hofstra University studying journalism. I'm the co-campus correspondent of my campus chapter, and outside of that, I'm also involved as a field reporter with our campus news show, and I currently intern with NYC at Hofstra.
Hi everyone, my name is Carla Ferragamo.
Quick, my friend.
I'm Carla Ferragamo. I'm a sophomore at Ace University. will be I'm Madame Major Communications and Film Screen Studies. I'm the co-commissioner's partner with Ali at Pace. I'm a part of Kappa Delta sorority. I'm a part of Universal Pictures at Pace.
Hi, so my name is Abby Elliott. This is going to sound a little repetitive because Carly and I are in for the same clubs. But I'm a co-campus correspondent and co-president with Carly for our campus chapter. I'm on Kappa Delta as well. And I also am the social media director for the Peer Advocates Against Sexual Assault with Carly at our school. So we just help support survivors in any way we can. And I just finished an internship at UM.
Awesome. So to start off, do you want to tell us a little about what two brands you're fiercely loyal to and why? We can start with you, Lauren.
Yeah, so I feel as though I'm not particularly loyal to certain brands. I'm more loyal to certain products. So if I find a product that I love and it's my tried and true product, I'll stick to that. I'm not too closed off to this is the one brand I'll go to and that's it.
I'm kind of the opposite. I love the brands that I love and I am so loyal to them. So one clothing brand that I love is J. Crew. I've loved it since high school and I feel like it's kind of everything that embodies my personal style. And then beyond that, I'm really loyal to Tula Skincare because it's the only thing that has ever worked for me. And I got the chance to work with the company about 1.5 years ago. So not only does it work, I have like a personal relationship with them.
I'm a mixture of both. I really like leather chains, but then I go with everything. Like, for example, for my skincare, I only use Avini and that's all.
So mine, I love the brand Glossier. Carly knows that like I only ever wear Glossier makeup or any of their skincare. It just started working when I was a freshman in high school. I'm a sophomore now. Or not in high school, in college. But one of my friends was a Glossier dress and I started using it and it was great. And then I was in Mayfell jeans just because I work in and they're great.
Awesome. So obviously when you got to college for the first time, you were making all of these purchasing decisions without your parents. So when you were at the grocery store, the drugstore, how were you making these decisions? What were you thinking to, and what was really like catching your eye when you were buying these products?
Well, I mean, for me, it was a little different because I didn't go away to college. I'm a commuter student at Montclair and I live in New Jersey. So I didn't have too much of the buying groceries on my own and laundry detergent and all that. But I have noticed myself researching products more before I purchase and more aware of what I'm purchasing.
I was really stressed when I got to college because I was so used to being able to go to Target with my mom and just kind of throw whatever I wanted in her basket and I didn't have to worry about it. And then when I was by myself, I was like, oh, I have to pay for this. So I really found myself doing self-research and kind of grabbing the most affordable things that I could, especially for boring stuff like laundry detergent, because I would not rather spend my money on that.
So I'm not from the US. I'm an international student from Argentina. So a lot of the cleaning products I had to buy were like asking my friends, asking their moms, like, hey, can you text your mom like what she needs to clean and all that. And then makeup, I always go by YouTube reviewers.
For my purchasing decisions, luckily before I left, my dad set me off with like a few items that were cleaning supplies, and laundry detergent and everything. But I think I just used what my parents, when I had to purchase on my own, what my parents had used. I'm allergic to a lot of detergents, so I knew that I should stick to that one. But I think I kind of just stopped spending money when I moved to college, especially the first year where I wasn't paid in anything. So I was just kind of all over the place, didn't have much to buy. But I would say probably most likely was what my parents had bought or what was cheap.
So are there some categories that you don't have a brand you're loyal to yet, and why haven't you found that brand to be loyal to?
Yeah, definitely for me, I haven't found a brand to be loyal to in hair care. That's one area that I feel like is very personal to a person. Everyone has different types of hair, but that's one thing that I always bounce around and I never actually find something I stick to forever.
I'm always looking for the perfect expensive. So I'm always really experimenting with different brands that I find online and in store, and I have yet to find one that really works for me, so nail polish is definitely up there.
And for me, it's both. I shop everywhere from H&M to Ross to Marshall. I just go wherever the cheapest is and what fits my style.
I would definitely be hair care. I just use whatever either my roommate has or my sister has or whatever I can get my hands on. That's one thing that I haven't really settled down, which I probably should do, but I haven't.
And so for the brands that you are loyal to, what did they do to win you over? Was it that you saw them at an event? Did you see them on social media? How did they get you to become so fiercely loyal?
For me particularly, I'm very into influencers and looking up to them and seeing what they do, especially on YouTube and Instagram. If I see, especially genuine sponsorships, if I see a certain product that's being partnered with a lot of influencers, I'll probably be most likely not to want to use that because it doesn't seem genuine to me. But when I find the ones that are a sincere review, I gravitate towards those products.
I love brands that have a really good personality online because you don't really get to know the brand in person unless they do really great events or like pop-up things that you can go to. So for me, it's really important how they present themselves online. If I feel like they're fun, like for example, the Hurricane's voice sounds like you're hanging out with your friends. So it's really important to me that a brand comes across as personable as best they can online.
For me, it's a social campaign. For example, very using real life models that range from all sizes. And that's like what I like the best because I know that most people are not like skin thin and like super tall. So seeing people that look like me on their advertising is what I like.
For me, for my big everything that I love is Glossier, and which is Carly guessed that my answer this morning. But their social media is great. It's very inclusive and just a cool brand to look at. And I really love their rep system. They have representatives that are just random college girls that they find that represent their brand. And one of my best friends who lived in my floor last year was actually one of them. So she just started putting her makeup on me, and then it looked good. So I started using it too.
So I know you guys have talked about social media a little bit, but how would you say you engage with brands on social media, and how do you learn about new ones on social media?
Oh, I would say most of my feed on Instagram is definitely brands and influencers more than people I actually know. And I definitely find new brands from other people posting about them, so definitely through Instagram especially.
Yeah, I also follow a lot of bloggers, and I like following digital media sites like Her Campus and Pop Sugar and Cosmo, 929. So through a mix of that, that's really how I find out about brands, whether it's through sponsored content or partnerships online. That's how I learn a lot about brands.
I learn about brands like Instagram ads. I don't really follow brands on my Instagram, so it's only for through ads, and then every Instagram post partners with it.
Yeah, I would say Her Campus is definitely, I mean, I'm around it all the time, so seeing what they have given us to promote or something in sponsored posts are really so fun to do. But I would say probably kind of can't avoid them and everything. Their posts always look really great.
Love your Her Campus answer. So now let's talk about influencers. Do you follow them? Why are you following them? And what do you expect from them? And what are you kind of looking for when you follow them?
I look for when I follow, I would say more less popular influencers because I feel like they're just starting out and their reviews are really sincere to what they're trying out, and you can really trust them because they're in the same situation I'm in. And I think influencer marketing is a great place to go, especially for our age. That's all we consume every day, I would say.
It's really important for me that the bloggers I follow don't come across as fake or having a feed that's too staged, because I feel like it's really easy to see through that. And sponsored content is really great, but if bloggers that I follow are just kind of creating this fake, perfectly staged life, I'm gonna unfollow them. So I feel like it's really important for the influencers to come across as authentic and that they feel like someone that I know and would be friends with in real life.
I don't follow influencers on my personal account. I decided that seeing that perfect image was bad for my mental health, so I decided to stay away. But I'm also the social media director for Campus at Pace, so So I follow influencers there and like see what's up and like keep up with them.
Yeah, I only follow a few influencers on my personal account just because I like them a lot, but I usually will watch their YouTube videos. So I tend to go towards smaller influencers just because, like you said before, it is more genuine. They're not just kind of getting a lot of money for something that they don't actually use. Most of the time, they bought it with their own money before they get famous and then actually start making money. So it's usually smaller ones.
So a lot of you guys are saying smaller influencers, so you say like micro influencers, like what's the following size that you kind of like to follow, and when do you think that it gets a little bit less genuine?
That's a hard one because I'd say that most of my influencers I follow are maybe anywhere from 20. I consider small like 20,000 followers as an influencer because you have these YouTubers with millions of followers. So around that range, 20,000 to 60,000.
Yeah, it's hard to put a number on it, but I feel like once they hit over 100K followers, that's when they kind of cross that threshold of being a bigger blogger. So I'd say the same thing, anywhere from like even 10K followers, it just feels a little more real to me.
Yeah, for me the same, like really small, like really positive influencers are, so they don't have that big of a following, so they say nothing as them.
Yeah, I would even say sometimes up to 250K below is usually where I go, just because they're big enough that they get bigger deals, but they're also still small enough that they know they're not going to get the most great ones.
So aside from influencers, who else is influencing your purchases? Is it your friends, other girls you see on campuses, celebrities? Do you want to tell us a little about that?
Yeah, definitely. My friends around me, I'll take a lot of. We'll sit and they'll be like, "Oh, I just found this new face wash that really helps my face," and I'll go and try it, even if it doesn't work for me. I still might not try it because they told me. And I also actually try a lot of products from. We get her campus survival kits. That's where I found a lot of products I've never heard about before. And samples are the best way for me to try something out before working on it.
Yeah, the Her Campus samples we get are so clutch for finding new things that we love. Also, my friends and I just talk about brands and products literally all the time. So if my best friend is using a new face mask, I'm absolutely going to steal it from her and borrow it and buy it for myself. But beyond that, I also like following kind of like digital media personalities, so not quite influencers, but people who write for digital publications, mainly because that's what I want to go into for my career. So through following them, I feel like I get to know them a little better, and if they're interacting with brands through their work, then I'll see that on their feed, and that will influence me as well.
For me, it's for campus media. Every partnership they do, I try everything. We have the college fashion week. We have this huge bag, and I tried everything in that bag. And then Abby is looking me up on what's here for like my friends' reviews.
Yeah, so I would definitely say my friends. And I have a little sister, so she just knows everything about brands. I don't know how, but she's very savvy with that, and so she'll tell me about new products, or I'll take her to Ulta, and she just will be like, okay, this is what you want to try, or we can try a sample here, and she just tells me which ones to do, and then I follow that.
So these brands that you see your friends using or whatever that you're always hearing about, when you finally decide like, okay, I'm gonna go buy this also, what makes you take that step?
When it's at the point where they're like, oh my God, this is such a great product. Not when they're first trying it out, but when it's at that point of, it'll change your life too.
Yeah, reviews are really important to me, especially because I do a lot of online shopping, so it's harder if you can't see the product in real life. So reviews are everything, especially when people post pictures in their reviews online, and seeing bloggers and influencers talk about products too. It's really important just to hear validation from other people that it's a good product.
Also, referral codes. Abby sent me a referral code for this year, and that's why I decided to try it because it was cheaper and it was on a sale.
I probably say trying it in a store, and if I feel like I don't like it, that's usually where something could come into my life like that. But unless it's online shopping, then it kind of is just like an emotional shopping experience where I'm just bored at home and I really want something, so I'll buy it online.
that's very real. So let's talk about budgeting. Do you have a budget? And if you do, have you set it?
I currently don't have a budget, I probably should, but I will be cautious of how much I'm spending on certain things. And there are certain things I'm buying every month that are the same purchases. So I'm definitely open to learning more about budgeting.
Yeah, I don't budget and I really need to. So I'm currently in the process of trying to find apps or different things that'll help me manage my money. But just like you said, I know every month I'll have things I need to spend money on, like a train ticket to come into the city for my internship. And I like buying Starbucks at the end of a hard week. So I really try to set aside money to make sure I always have cash for that.
I don't budget either. I will have to start though because in the summer I'm moving to my apartment with my friends, so that's kind of a necessity for me. Like I keep track of my money. Like for example, if I like I spend like $100, I'm gonna be like, okay, for the next 2 weeks, don't spend any money at all.
Yeah, I just started budgeting for our sorority. We had a whole budgeting meeting because they realized that all of us didn't know how to. And so it kind of kicked me into gear. I'm trying, but it's not going super well. It's not. But I'm working on that. My dad's an accountant, and he's trying to push me into it. But he showed me. But there's a lot of things.
So when you guys say you're not budgeting, does that mean that you're kind of like spending, and then you're getting really low in your bank account and you're like, okay, let me stop? Like, can you just explain like what you mean you're kind of, I guess, spending?
Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll spend money and then I'll look at my bank statement and see how much I spent, and then I'll do the same thing. I just won't spend anything for a while, and then I'll keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it's really bad, especially from like going out. Like my friend and I got margaritas on Friday night, and then I got a little too many, and then I kind of had to rein it in and be like, okay, this weekend I'm gonna stay in. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm not gonna buy anything. It's really not a healthy way to manage money.
Yeah, same. I spend all the money and like, maybe I shouldn't have. And then I see if I can like cut my expenses, but it's also really hard living in New York. Everything here is so expensive, and our school cafeteria is also really expensive, so it's really hard for us.
Yeah, I try to at least put away 10% of the money that I'm getting in. It doesn't always work because sometimes there's things like my car broke down a few weeks ago, or something happened, and I started a new job, so I get paid for 2 weeks, so I didn't have that whole like starting paycheck for 3 weeks. So it was kind of hard, but I would say probably same as all the other answers. Like I'll spend a lot of money, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh,
Right, yeah.
I have to stop.
So, now you guys like to spend a lot of money, but it seems like they're smaller purchases. So how do you decide to maybe do a big splurge? Like, what is it when you're like, okay, I want to splurge on this thing? What do you take into consideration when you decide to make that big purchase?
So I won't make a big purchase unless it's something that a product I can't forget about, can't shake, like looking at reviews, looking at people wearing it or using it or whatever. So that's when I decide to go for it and do it.
I'm a huge believer in the treat yourself mentality. And kind of like the presentation earlier, I really do splurge on things like makeup and skincare because that's important to me. It's going on my face. I would spend like a decent amount of money. And same with shoes. Walking around in New York, like you just can't wear bad shoes. Because I've done it before. It's terrible. So there are a couple things like that I know I'll always splurge on.
I splurge when I'm emotional, so if I have a bad day, I will go to Sephora and buy makeup. Also, when I have a big event coming up, for example, I have my sorority formals, I have to get dress and shoes and my makeup, so that was a big splurge.
I have a few big splurges sometimes. Most of it's like clothes or makeup, but usually I use it to like today. Or like I bought this dress yesterday because well I'm going somewhere. I can buy it, so I'll do things like that. So maybe it's when I have something at an event, or even just a fun thing I'm doing, or going on a date or something like that, where oh well, I have to get something because I have to look good for that. So
So what about your shopping schedule? If you had to say like how often you shop and are there key moments? It seems like events are really important to you, but like how often do you say you're like going into stores and shopping online?
I would say I'm mostly just shopping for essentials year round. That's when I'm mostly doing it. But if I'm going somewhere, like to a mall just to shop, I rarely do that. It'll happen when I'm going for the essentials. Yes.
Yeah, I don't really spend a lot of money in store. I don't know why, but it's really easy to shop online, and I do it literally all the time. So, like for example, if I'm in class on my laptop and I'm running out of my foundation, we just go to Ulta really quick, and then I'll like add some other things to my bag just because. So there's really no timeline for my shopping. I just kind of do it.
So I spent a lot of money my freshman year, so my sophomore year I was like, I cannot do that anymore. So I told my roommate to stop me before I go to the store. So now I try going like every 2 weeks maybe. Sometimes a month. I'm trying to like contain myself.
Yeah, it's hard living here and then passing by all these windows and knowing that you can just go in there and it's really easy to spend money, especially when you get a paycheck and all of a sudden my bank account's bigger than it was 2 hours ago. But I would probably say there's no schedule. It's really just when I'm emotional. But all of a sudden I'm in like a vulnerable place and I mean it's just some sort of like happiness. That's usually when it's like once a month.
So now we're going to switch gears a little and let's talk about your career. How do you learn about companies that you want to apply to and what makes you want to work at a particular company and what would turn you off from applying somewhere?
So my first instinct is just look up the brands that I already love and see if they have any openings or something. But most of the internships I learned from LinkedIn, I forgot the name of it, something Queen. Intern Queen, yes, and all those websites. That's really where I find most ones. I feel like you can't really find internship listings online as you would. I would really love that though for brands to post it on their social media. I feel like that's a great way, and I will apply for one if I feel like if I can see myself working there full time. That's when I will decide to apply.
Yeah, I'm graduating college in a couple weeks, which is terrifying. So I'm in full job search mode right now. And I'm looking literally everywhere, so LinkedIn, Indeed. At 2010, I found is a really great resource, and then again, just going to specific companies that I want to work for and checking out their career pages. And something that really makes me want to work for a company is their culture, because there's such a mentality, I think, of being a young woman in her early 20s where you want to hustle and like work really hard and find success. And so if you're going to be spending all of your time at work, it should really be a fun place to work that has a lot of cool perks and benefits, and company culture I think is huge. And if it's not gonna be like your home away from home, I can't see myself spending time.
Our school has a really good career services program. Every week, someone from different companies come to our school and talk to us. For example, 2 weeks, we're hosting an internship for all our school. I try to apply for internships at the companies have their social values aligned with mine, and I feel like I can work there.
So my internship process is a little different. PACE is very good about having people come to PACE and talk to us. There's something called Handshake where people's meeting interns will contact PACE and say, this many interns, this is what we're looking for, and they post it on our website, so only they do apply, which is an amazing resource. But how I've gotten both the internships that I've had have just purely been luck. Our former CC, who just graduated, she gave me a babysitting job, and I went for the babysitting job, and then the next day I had an internship in fashion, and the woman I was babysitting for just needed someone for one day for a photo shoot, and then she kept bringing me back, and all of a sudden I was so it just kind of happened. Or the one that I had at the UN was a teacher that I had for a class that I didn't need to take, and he asked me if I wanted to help. So my major is fashion marketing, but I was helping with nuclear humanitarian aid. So that was not something that I was used to, but it almost made me change my major.
That's awesome. So there's obviously so much going on in the world right now. What are some causes that are so important to you and why are you passionate about them?
Yeah, for me, I would say it's definitely gender equality, especially working somewhere like her campus where it's totally run by women for college women. So I feel like that's really brought awareness to me of, having the opportunity for equal pay in companies and having the opportunity to be offered the same jobs as a man would. I would say that's where I'm really focused on it.
Yeah, women's rights in the world and the workforce are so important to me. And beyond that, global warming really is one of my top priorities because it's really scary to think about how brands and companies can try to make a difference in the world. So it's important for me that places will kind of like take stances on that to show that they're fighting to save the planet. And then beyond that, things like women's health and abortion rights and also gun control are like so important to me.
For me, sexual assault prevention and education, as Abby mentioned before, we're advocates against sexual assault in our school. So hearing all those stories, watching the media is just terrifying how big those numbers increase gun control and women's rights and health.
Yeah, so with PASA, Carly, that was how Carly and I met, and now we're everything together. So basically, sexual assault happens a lot on campuses, and anytime someone is on confidential resources, so they can come to us, we don't report it, and we can help them report it if they want, or they can just talk to us and talk to someone who is their age. We have an older woman who helps us, who's our director, so she can talk to them if they want, but mainly sexual assault, uncontrollable, women's rights, gender equality, those are the ones that are really coming at us.
So I'd love to take this time to now open this to the audience and you can ask any questions to these amazing panelists. I don't know if I should ask the crowd or speak loudly. Speak loudly. You can just, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about your content consumption? Like what shows are you watching and how do you find new shows to watch?
Well, I watch a lot of YouTube personally. I don't really watch TV anymore at all, really, unless it's something popular on Netflix or Hulu. But yeah, definitely YouTube. That's all I watch.
I mentioned before that I work at Bravo, so I watch Bravo shows literally all the time. And I do love The Bachelor. I don't know what college girls don't like it. It's like my favorite show ever. But I also watch YouTube as well. I like to follow a lot of life and style and college bloggers and
I mostly watch Netflix and Hulu. I'm a passionate Grey's Anatomy viewer. I've been following Grey's Anatomy my whole life, so I watch everything related to Grey's Anatomy.
I really go between Netflix and YouTube, just because YouTube is something that you can kind of have on in the background and listen to the vlogs or really anything, makeup videos, anything that you need to know. And then American Horror Story is a show, so that's a film thing that I'm actually really looking for.
Do you guys feel like there's enough education surrounding birth control towards college kids on campuses, through advertising? Do you guys hear anything about birth control? Do you feel comfortable talking about it?
I definitely don't think there's any education in college about it, or at least I haven't seen it. The only time I'll ever see something, I've seen ads on YouTube and I've seen ads for campus. That's really where I learned about it.
Yeah, I absolutely don't think there's enough information. I feel like girls have these questions, and I find myself too not knowing where to turn. I don't really know where to go to get the answers because people don't talk about it, and there's not really a lot of ads about it. The only time I really learn about it is if I'm following a blogger or an influencer who's going through the process, for example, getting an IUD, and she's like very open about it. But beyond that, I think it's really hard to find information about that.
So part of our job is to educate people in our school about sexual assault, birth control, thank you. But it's really hard because when we go to classes, they are not paying attention to us. They're on the phone, they're on the computer, so it's really hard to get to their minds sometimes.
Yeah, you know that some people are listening, but most of the time no one wants to speak about it. I was lucky where my family, my mom is a nurse, and she's very open about anything. So I was a small child, but like everything about sexual reproduction, which they didn't let me pass up. But I was very lucky where a lot of people aren't. And we saw people coming and talking to us that didn't know that IUDs exist or any type of birth control really exists. So we try to hand out condoms and things just to tell people about it. But a lot of people unfortunately don't really want to listen about it.
A few of you mentioned that you like to do research. Can you talk about where? Do you use Google or Amazon or just friends and family?
So I live on review pages of any product I ever go on. It's really a letdown when I don't see any reviews under clothing items or makeup products. So that's where I live, under the review tab on our website. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. If I'm gonna buy something, I always scroll down to see what people are saying about it, and if there are no reviews, I might not buy it just because I don't know if it's trustworthy. And then again, just listening to other people in real life talk about it, who use it and like it, I'm really interested in hearing like validation.
I use YouTube. For example, when I want to change my foundation, I type on YouTube, there's foundations for oil spill. And then all the different videos came up and I chose for that.
Yeah, I'll just either type the product name into Google or into any forum. So like it could be Facebook or Instagram, anything, or I'll ask people if they have it and if they know if it's good. But the review pages are definitely a big deal.
How do you guys find yourselves consuming health-related content? So whether or not you make a decision to go to Universal or a University Health Center, or if you go off campus for those things.
Well, I don't live on campus, so I feel like I couldn't answer that fully.
So I feel like I'm always sick, and I did get sick this year. So which I have like mono and Lyme disease at the same time, so it's not a good year. But I went to the health center, and a lot of times school health centers, they don't really know, and I was telling them something was wrong. They kept saying everything's fine, and so I finally went to a doctor or an urgent care, and they told me everything was fine. And then I finally went to like my actual home doctor who realized that something was wrong. So I've tended to stick to just regular doctors that I've had because it's not really easy to have.
Yeah, it's really stressful getting sick on campus because I also live on a dorm, and it's really bad, but sometimes I'll find myself Googling symptoms to see if it's normal, and then you go to WebMD and you're like terrified for your life. But I feel the same way. I don't really trust my campus health and wellness center, because they're not very friendly, which is sad when you're feeling sick. You want to feel comfortable. So I do really, if I'm feeling sick, I try to schedule a visit home to go to my primary care doctor.
How important are health food trends to you? Like, is there a certain attribute about products that resonate with you, like low sugar or nutrient-dense ingredients? What do you guys look for when you're making food?
Honestly, it's not the best, but I feel like I don't always have time to pay attention to like eating good foods just because I'm busy with interning and then having all my classes on 2 days. I find it hard to plan meals, and so I really just find myself trying to grab healthy snacks on campus, and I'm not really looking at the nutrition label. I'm just kind of going with what I know and saying like I should definitely like grab an apple instead of like a bag of chips.
Yeah, I go in and out of it, so sometimes I'll have a week where I'm eating super clean, and then the next week I'm eating out like 3 or 4 times because it just depends on how busy I am. But I definitely will fall into those trends where it's super healthy for this week, and then all of a sudden I don't know, well, one bag of chips isn't gonna hurt, and all of a sudden
Okay, so we have time for one more question. Yes, right there.
Okay, I don't want to be the one to end on, but you guys mentioned a lot of really important issues that resonate with you, and it seems like with the generation as a whole. Do you feel like men your age are also like as active and as focused on some of those issues as age?
No. I feel like college guys just don't care, and it's fine because like nothing really is gonna happen to them. We're being honest, like college women don't really have to, well, I feel like as a woman it's more important to be aware and to be engaged because I think you're more likely to be affected by things that are going on campus and in the world. So it's kind of frustrating, but I don't see them being as engaged as
Yeah, in our year applicant group, there was only one guy who graduated last year, and now it's only around 5 women. And like when you go to class, you see the guys that they're on the phones asking stupid questions to you, or like to our director, they actually called her during her presentation about sexual harassment. So
it's pretty nuts how it happens. But we did have another guy, but he left. I don't know why. He didn't support the cause. He said, which I didn't quite understand. But it's hard to get guys to come to meetings or our events because we're talking about sexual assault. We have a lot of the LGBT community come, so that's really great because it does really affect the community. So that's really the only meals that we get though. We're really into the whole issue, but it's very difficult to our events.
I feel like at my school I have kind of a different experience. I feel like I noticed a lot of guys on campus actually being really involved in what's going on and always supporting everyone on campus. Maybe that's just where I go in the community I live in, but they were always coming up to our campus tables and asking what is this all about. They're really open to learning what we do, I feel like.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to now introduce Megan Shackleton, our Manager of Influencer Marketing and Community, along with members of the Influencer Collective. And thank you so much for raising college
We are going to take a quick stretch break for like 2 minutes. So don't go far. Quick stretch break for 2 minutes. Yeah.
It's really good. No, it's really, really
All right, if everyone wants to find their seats, we're going to get started with our influence marketing. Anyone wants to
Hello? All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our influence marketing panel. Hey everyone, my name is Riley Todd. I'm Megan. I am the manager of influencer marketing and influencer community. Windsor mentioned that we have our own in-house influencer network and agency, the Influencer Collective, and I'm so delighted to welcome 4 members from our Influencer Collective today. We're going to talk a little bit about 2019 trends and how they like to work with brands. So we'll get started with some questions that I have here, and then I'll leave like 10 minutes at the end for some questions from the audience. So to get started, can you guys just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself. If you want to talk your Instagram handle, you're totally welcome to. We can just start with you, Ariel. Just go ahead.
Hi everybody, my name is Ariel Lucille. I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in 2017. I currently work at Morgan Stanley in the Private Wealth Management Marketing Division. And on top of that, I'm an entrepreneur and influencer. I started my platform, Hey Lifestyle, 3 years ago. Instagram handle is also Hey Lifestyle, so follow me. Yeah, I've been part of the Influencer Collective for about 6 months.
Okay, hi guys, I'm Grace Lee, and I'm also based here in New York. I graduated from UNC Chapel Hill and moved up here 2 years ago. I'm also a personal, I guess you could say, style blogger and influencer. I do social media strategy and content creating. I started my blog in 2010, so it's been 9 years, and I was also part of IHC since then. So, and you can follow me on my Instagram at mygracelee.
Alright, hey guys, I'm Eva. I'm currently a student at Harvard School of Design. I'm majoring in fashion design. I'm also the blogger behind Eva Darling, which is a travel and style website integrating feminine style with the trendy twist for millennials. I also work in addition to the blogging at school as a social media consultant, and I've been part of the IHC, I think, for the last 4 years. I've been blogging for a total of about 6.5.
Hi everybody, my name is Destiny Hanna, but I am better known as Desi on the interwebs. I used to go to Peace University. I'm currently on hiatus. I work as a professional photographer here in New York City, and I've been with IHC since late last year, I want to say.
Awesome. So I'd love to ask you guys, what made you want to become an influencer or a blogger? And what were your goals and what were you kind of inspired or motivated by? You're welcome to go down the line, or if anyone wants to just jump in.
Sure, I'll start. What made me start this blog, this platform, was I was in college and I was a part of a lot of different organizations. I was in our talent group, I was in sports, I was leading a lot of organizations, but I felt like I needed a space that I could have 100% creative control over. I needed another creative outlet that I could control. So, and also a lot of people asked, I was asking for fashion advice, skincare tips, and so I figured why not start a blog? People are already asking for my opinion on things, why not give more people my opinion?
So I started in high school, which was a time where blogs were non-existent. People were like, what is going on? Like, why are people posting photos on the internet? So So it was a very tricky time. This is also when Instagram was just starting. So it was 2010, 11. And I just remember that I used to love dressing up in high school. It was very different. A lot of people would ask me walking around the halls, like, where's this from? One friend recommended that I just start a website and just start posting things on there. So I started that, and I also love to write, which is another thing that I wanted to be able to help people, not just help them with fashion tips, but also life advice. And so with the blog, I was able to mesh the two. I was able to, write about what I wanted to, also post what I want to wear. And since college, I think that's when it really took off. And I definitely, I was a PR major, so it really helped doing all the classes and just understanding how the marketing and influencer relations, all that worked out. So.
I started my website back in middle school, and I definitely had no idea that blogging could be a job or writing things for it or anything along those lines. I was bullied really badly, and I just needed an outlet where I felt as though I had a voice. And I've always kind of been interested in style and lifestyle, that type of thing, so I started out that way, and it's definitely evolved. If you look at where I started, where I am now, it's night and day. Please don't go back that far. But now I kind of focus on travel, and I honestly like it a lot. I hit my website for, I think, my parents didn't know I had it for the first 3-4 years, and since I started telling people about it, it's going really, really well.
So I used to have a Tumblr, and it was this whole aesthetic page, and I used to post my own photos, but I also reblogged others. And when Instagram first became a thing, I was in high school, and my friends were like, "Oh, why don't you just start posting on there?" And I was like, "Okay." And I was a little bit Tumblr famous. So I was like, "Hey, Tumblr people, want to try out Instagram with me?" So I gained a little bit of a following early on, and I guess in high school, it's kind of a popularity contest. So everyone was like, "Whoa, you're famous or something." And I'm like, "No." So, but from then on, I had that following and I had that push, and I had an audience that was like, "Post more style photos, post more travel pics." So that was a big motivation for me to do that. And eventually, I started getting offers from brands, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to wear my shirt?" And I was like, "Okay." And so I kind of just fell into it. I didn't know it was a job or that it could even be a career. I had no idea. So it just kind of happened.
So how do you guys decide what kind of content you want to post? And do you have an editorial calendar? Do you plan things out, or how do you decide?
So for me, what I do is, what I decided is that authenticity is key. Every time I post something, I need to make sure it's authentic to me. And what I used to do was I would just kind of pull topics out of the air. If it related to anything that I'd like to talk about, I would just write about it. But I kept running into a lot of roadblocks, and I have writer's block all the time. And I'm like, I don't know how people do this because I can't figure out what to write about. And they're complaining, I just don't know what to write about sometimes. And she was like, Ariel, you need to think about, what is your why? Why are you writing what you're writing about? Who is your audience and who are you trying to reach? And that kind of shifted my mindset. And I was like, okay, what is my value proposition as an influencer? What is the value down the topics that I talk about? And what I've come up to is fashion, skincare, and travel, sort of like a lifestyle combination of things. And now I just talk about those things, and because it's authentic to me, and because these are things that I do every day, and things that I wear, and things that I really think, it's easier. It's much easier to figure out what I want to talk about. And in terms of the editorial calendar, I usually just look at the full year, and I mark off all the holidays, if I want to do some holiday topics, or if there are big sales like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Nordstrom sale, things like that, I'll make sure to keep that on my radar. But then I always make sure to leave space for if a brand comes and reaches out to me and wants to work with me. Because if you fill up your editorial calendar for the entire year, every single day, you're not going to have space to do anything else. And then you'll be stressed, and it's like, oh, I have to reach this deadline that you just made up and pulled out of the air. So that's sort of how I plan what I talk about.
I guess going off of that, I definitely block off holidays, brands. Obviously, you kind of want to have I think in a calendar mindset, just by looking at all the rows, being like, okay, this holiday is coming up.
how much time do I have to prepare for that? And then also going off of what she said about authenticity, which is very so important because I feel like I've done a lot of like trial and errors over the years with like blogging. I also have hit so much like writer's block. It's like, what do I write about? What's the content? I feel like in this kind of market where everyone's kind of doing something similar, like how do you stand out? And so I guess for me, it does go down to like, okay, this is why you started. What's something that like the audience, like why, how do you keep engaging with your audience? And for me, that's constantly asking questions. I'm very active like on my Instagram stories with my audience, and I think asking people questions, doing polls, and just like getting a sense of what they want really helps me because it gives me an idea of like, okay, you know what? This is something I am interested in. This is also something I can cover. So I think that has been very helpful. I also think that with what I do, in the beginning, I just stuck to fashion, but over the years, I've like expanded beyond that. You know, I've tried beauty. Moving to New York, I feel like there's so many beauty products here and options. So I've done that. I've done more skincare. So I think also just like stepping out of my comfort zone and just going beyond has been very helpful to like see what else is out there.
Yeah, so my editorial calendar is kind of broken up into like different sections for me anyways. I would say it's mainly dictated by where I'm traveling that month and how long I'll be there. And then keeping in mind major holidays. So for example, at the beginning of December, I was in Japan for a week, but because it was holiday, I actually pushed all of that content to January and I just saved it all down for my story. So it still was authentically the Japan trip. It was just a month later that it actually happened. And then I also separated out into who I'm working with that month and then kind of like just core pieces, evergreen content that I want to do. I would say that where I get the inspiration for a lot of my content, a lot of my series, is just problems that I have in my everyday life, problems that people are DMing me about. So for example, I do a travel series now called A Single Girl's Guide to Whatever City. And it started because I was going on my first international solo trip and that trip happened to be to Paris, which if you didn't know is a very, very romantic destination for a lot of couples. So I was seeing all these travel guides aimed at couples. And I was like, oh my God, like this city is huge. There's gotta be like 10 things that a single girl can do. And then just sparked like a whole series of guides.
So my editorial board is a little weird. So when I used to have Tumblr, what I used to do is kind of post about my everyday life. So on my walk home from school, maybe I saw something that I thought was really pretty and worth sharing. So I post a picture of that. And my Instagram kind of mimics that, where I'm still sharing my life, and it's very, very close to the daily, if not daily, because if I can, I love to. I just like to mimic my real life. Of course, I have different slots for, I can fit in like a brand deal here and here and here. And I'll have my holidays marked as well. But I love to share my everyday life. And I have a big focus on going out and making sure that I take pictures, not only because it's fun, but it grows me as a photographer as well. So big focus on sharing everyday life. It's a big thing for me.
Yeah, so Grace kind of touched on this next question, but what kind of content performs best with your audience and how do you specifically engage with your audience?
For me, the content that performs best is authentic content. If I'm talking about things that I like, things that I really wear, things that I really do, places I'm actually going, it resonates with people. Because if you're trying to be somebody that you're not, and you're trying to emulate someone that you see that you enjoy looking at, people are going to realize, okay, this is not really who she is, or I don't really get what she's about, or I don't really resonate with her. So if I'm authentic, that resonates, and also my aspirational and inspirational content resonates the best.
Okay, so I guess I kind of did talk about that, but just constantly asking is, I think, key. Just because at first I feel like it definitely felt like I was just a one-way, you know, I was just constantly just putting out content, and people were like, oh, that's cool, you know, that's nice to like look at, but then people were like, what about this? Like, you know, diving in deeper. That's really helped me open up more about that. Definitely travel guides, New York City related life, those are like topics that are pretty big, you know, that I get asked a lot. So I'll try to, utilize those sort of, knowing that I'll try to make different versions of, like, maybe there's a travel guide for, like, places for seasons, it's spring, places to visit for the holidays. I'll try to, like, switch it up just so it's not too basic for everyone. But again, I always just listen to the audience, and I think that's really key for me.
Yes, so I do a lot with Pinterest, and so when I'm looking at which content performs best in terms of my blog, I do a lot of looking at the Pinterest numbers. Usually within the first kind of 48, 72 hours that something gets posted, I look at how it's performing in terms of impressions and click-throughs on Pinterest, and then I look at it again a couple months later just to see which posts are performing well in the long run also. When it comes to my Instagram, I definitely look at the numbers and what people are responding to, even just on my stories. I do a series called Darling Edits, which are kind of what I would call like storybook type edits. There's a lot of Photoshop elements of like sparkle trails and hot air balloons and the flat irons that would never ever exist. And I'm very transparent about it. I do believe in being very authentic. So you can always see the before and after on my story. I disclose it in the caption when things are edited. But I think people go on Instagram sometimes as an escape. And I know for me, like when I looked back at my roots, I looked back, or I started to have an escape. So I've kind of seen this next level, and I'm definitely very candid in captions. I would say I'm a little bit off the cuff sometimes on stories, not in a bad way, but in a very young millennial type of way. So that's kind of how I figure out what I'm going to do next.
So for me, whenever I'm looking at my Instagram posts, I notice that posts with me in it or with some human aspect in it perform better than, let's say, a flat lay that wouldn't have a hand or that doesn't have a Polaroid of a person in it. So I found little ways to still incorporate my love for flat lays or my love for product photography with human aspects in it. And that's really helped my engagement a lot since people are going there to see a person.
So aside from brand deals, do you incorporate brands in your content organically, and how do you decide what brands to include and when? Maybe we can give our little rest and start with testing.
So for me, I'll only work with a brand if it's something I would tell my mom or my husband about. And it's so funny that I say, like, it's those two people, because they will automatically say, no, that's not something you would wear, if it was. And so they helped me kind of put me in my place early on so that I could realize, okay, I'm going to say no to bigger people, and that's okay because it just doesn't fit what I do. And as far as unpaid, it's just, if I like this brand, I'm going to wear it and I'm going to show it. I'm going to be happy to. So.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely essential that bloggers feature brands that they're not working with in their content, just because I do think it's very, very obvious when there's a blogger who is only featuring brands that they're in partnership with, especially when it comes to things like, say, travel essentials or wardrobe pieces for spring, that type of thing. And also, too, on someone's feed, it's really obvious that they're always posting with the products like, all the time. When it comes for me and like which brands I choose to work with, it definitely comes down to which brands I would see myself using in everyday life. I've definitely turned brands down before just because I felt as though it was something that didn't really align with me. Like, I've never tried a cup of coffee, so any coffee company that approaches me is usually probably going to know, because it's just not something that's true to myself, and I think my audience can see through that pretty clearly.
I think she definitely covered that part with obviously knowing what aligns best with you. I have definitely tried a bunch of, like, what I do usually when I want to try a brand is I'll ask for them to send me product before the collaboration so I can just like try it out, actually see if I like it, see if it's something I'm willing to work on and work for. And then results, obviously, I'll like let them know. And if it's a no, then I'll tell them. Again, I think it is very important. If I'm not using the product, then obviously it's something you shouldn't move forward with. Also, I guess what she said about there's a lot of influencers get so much product. I feel like, there's like PR packages, so much product. And I think, again, it's obvious when there's an influencer who's just wanting the money and just wants to just like promote product, and it's like one liner like caption, you never see them use the product ever before. Again, which is why I think stories is very helpful for that, just to like show them every day, like, oh look, by the way, this is what I use in the mornings and stuff like that. So that's been really helpful. But again, it just like makes the influencer like not trustworthy if they like don't, if they're not like obviously disclosing. So that's very important.
Yes, and for me, I definitely include brands that I am not necessarily doing a partnership with. But it's only ever brands that I actually own, I actually like, I actually use on a daily basis. Because I never want to come across as I'm just trying to push products all the time. I don't want to be that influencer that they're talking about, that you always see their whole feed is just straight ads. That sucks. So absolutely, and I think they cover pretty much everything.
So when you guys are actually working on it or considering a brand collaboration, what could you factor into your decision other than just like the brand itself and the product itself? Like, do you go by the timeline or what the scope of work the brand is asking for? What do you factor into your decision to take or decline a brand collaboration?
For me personally, if you approach me in a professional manner, you already have me listening. After that, I decide, is this a brand that resonates with me personally? If I wouldn't feel comfortable promoting this to a friend of mine or telling them about this product or company, then I would feel uncomfortable working with them because that's not authentic. That's not something that I would do in my daily life. So if that is a brand that resonates with me and I think it resonates with people I know, then I determine what are they asking me to do? What is the scope of work? And is this something that is realistic for me to be able to execute on? And if so, then I am in contact with the brand, we have conversations, we see what the pay is gonna look like or what, the return is gonna look like. So
I think something that I've learned over the years is knowing what works for me. I'm someone who just loves to overachieve, I guess, and I try to just do everything as possible. But I also know realistically that hurts me in the end. And I've gone through a lot of things where I've definitely done more than I should have. And knowing that, moving forward, that's helped me like communicate with brands. I like to just, go ahead flat out, like ask a bunch of questions. Definitely like to hop on a phone call to get more of like the personal with the brand, get to know them more, email them often. I also like when brands are very consistent with their emails. Obviously, can't always be on back and forth, but it really helps for them to know that they'll be there to answer anything that you have. And yeah.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of it. For me, it's definitely first and foremost about, do I resonate with this brand? Do I use this brand? Is their product something that I could see loving in my everyday life? And then it comes down to what are they asking for? Image rights are a huge thing for me. Are they looking for reusage? Are they looking for ownership? Are they not in there at all? And then on top of that, too, just the pay in balance with what the ask is for post requirements. I've definitely been off way too much before in the past, and it's to the point that like I kind of know about how long collaboration will take. Definitely one of the big things for me is, are they asking for one of my edits? Because one of those photos will take me, 8 to 12 hours just to edit in Photoshop to get it ready for Instagram. So it's kind of like all those things coming together.
For me, it's three things. So the first is if I like the brand or if their mission aligns with my brand. So that's a huge thing for me. And if that's a no, then whole thing's no. Second is creative control. Is this post, do you want me to make it look like it came straight from your feed and now it's on mine? Or is this going to be my creative vision? And so there has to be some negotiation, because sometimes it's like, do you want to repost or do you want me to post? And then the third one is long-term relationships. So I'm always looking for brands that want to keep a relationship, because sometimes I'll get a product and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this and I want to keep posting about it. And I do, because I absolutely love it and I can't contain myself. And so it's really encouraging for me to see a brand that sees that and they're like, let's partner again, let's do it again, let's do a new project. And I think that's so exciting. So I do that with Aerie, and I was actually, this year, it was such a blessing. I got featured in their stores nationwide, my photos. I was like, what? But it was all because it started with me posting their stuff because I loved it. And then they were like, do you want to try our stuff for a campaign? I said, sure. And then this year, after 2 years of being in talks, we got to do that for the holidays. So those are three big things for me.
Yeah, and Destiny kind of just touched on this, but what are some of your brand collaborations, like with the IHC that you've been proud of?
So I really enjoyed the Duncan campaign, mostly because it involved an event, and I got to meet a bunch of really cool people, and I also made a really good friend there. So yeah, I just thought that was a really cool addition to, just posting. I thought it was a cool way to be really involved with the product and learn more about it.
So one of the campaigns I'm most proud of is really funny because I think IHC has given me so many amazing opportunities, but they actually gave me one of my very, very first brand collaboration opportunities. It was unpaid, it was with Palmer's. I did it like, oh my gosh, it had been like 4 years ago. And that's still one of the collaborations that I'm most proud of just because it was like my very first collaboration with a major brand and I was like, oh my god, like, I can do this.
Okay, so my favorite was the EF. I was able to travel to Paris with them last year, and it was like an unbelievable experience for me. Just because it was my first time, and I learned a lot about what it means to study abroad. And when it was time to post the content, all of it was like real and authentic, and it was just like, straight from the heart, and I loved it just because it was like, wow, this is something that I can like experience and also share, and it's all, out there and forward. So I got a lot of like people asking questions about like travel in Paris and stuff. So again, it was like great to just be able to do that. And also the team itself, they were very helpful. I was able to communicate with them back and forth, which is something I appreciate a lot about a brand.
So for me personally, I don't know if I'm right here. So I haven't been a part of the IHC for very long, but one of the most proud collaborations I did was, I think it was the first one, with Fila. I grew up with that brand. I'm a 90s baby, so that was kind of something that I've known and loved for my whole life. So when this opportunity came around, I was like, yes. And so yeah, I absolutely loved creating content for them, and I hope to get to do more collaborations with IHC.
Awesome. I'm just going to ask one more question and then we'll turn to the audience. So what is something brands don't understand about working with influencers, or if you could give like one piece of golden advice to brands about working with influencers, what would it be?
For me personally, I love it when a brand understands that creating good content takes effort. It really is disappointing when a brand expects so much from you and don't realize that it takes a lot of effort to create this, and it would be nice if the reciprocation was there, like if I'm getting paid adequately for what the type of effort that I'm giving. Or if we work out a good deal, that makes me feel good, because I don't want to be putting all this effort into it and not getting anything out of it, because the return on the investment is not, it doesn't make sense.
I definitely agree with that. I think a lot of brands, even still now, think that influencers just take photos and just post it like we're models, and just like, how hard can it be? You just snap a photo and post it, tag us. But again, I think, I'm glad like we have stuff like this, just like communicate on both ends. How much time it does take and effort that goes into a collaboration. There's like location scouting, there's hiring a photographer, there's the creative direction, what products do you need for the shoot, and all of it takes like not just hours, but like days of planning, and then there's also weather, like, what if the shoot doesn't work out with the weather? So I think brands should understand more of that, and maybe if they don't like really understand what goes into the behind the scenes, asking questions is a great way to start. I've definitely been able to just like do that with anyone who does have questions, so that's been helpful.
Yeah, I completely second everything that they just said. I think it definitely depends on who you're working with and kind of what their quality of content is and what their creative vision is. But I would say that for me, when I'm working with a brand, it's really disheartening when I feel as though brands aren't necessarily treating me with the same respect that I would like to treat them with. And I guess the situation that I like to turn on, pardon me, exec sometimes is, like a typical collaboration for me will take anywhere from 24 to 36 hours in terms of location scouting, photography, editing the blog post, writing, posting, promoting, cross-promoting, all of it. So would you be comfortable with someone asking you for 36 hours of work in exchange for a $40 product? That's kind of my reasoning with that.
And just to like piggyback off of what they were saying, how much effort goes into everything. Sometimes I'll get proposals and they're like, okay, we want this in 5 to 7 days. And I'm like, whoa, like what if I need to reshoot? What if the weather is terrible? What if my photographer isn't available and then my 2 other photographer friends can't pick up for them? So it's knowing when to set a deadline is really key. Like I like to have a good 2 weeks just of time to shoot, reshoot if necessary, edit again, send it to you, see if you like it. If you don't, I can reshoot again. Like I just want to have that ample time instead of rushing for a deadline and not doing my best work.
Awesome, thanks guys. So we have about 5 minutes for audience Q&A. If you want to direct any questions to all the panelists or single one of them, just raise your hand. Any questions?
I was wondering how other influencers kind of influence your content and how you, I don't know, interact with them, like as an influencer yourself, like how that looks like.
Sure. So with IHC, it's great that it brings a community of influencers together. So having influencer friends like here in New York City has been very helpful. It's been great. Like, you know, sometimes you can just, if you're stuck on something, they'll be able to share some creative direction to help inspire, or, you know, there's a lot of opportunities with like shoots. I know a photographer who will have like group settings where you can like meet other people, shoot with them, and maybe even be in some of their like campaigns. So that's been really helpful, just to like knowing that you're not alone in doing this and knowing you have other people to help you.
Yeah, I think I've actually started to intentionally spend a little bit less time scrolling through my home feed, just because I want to make sure that the content I'm creating is original and something that people might not have seen before. And I think that if I'm constantly taking in content from other influencers all the time, it's very easy to subconsciously fall into the trap of your content looking like everyone else's. That being said, I love my influencer friends. I love following them. They make beautiful, beautiful content. But I think where they're most helpful to me is just having that community. I know sometimes I'll text one of my friends like 5 different versions of the same image and be like, which one do you think I should post? And she'll be like, Tessa just posted something like this, post this one. That's to me the most beneficial part of the community, and that's where I think it's awesome to have supporting uplifting girls around you.
Yeah, for me, definitely the creative direction. I will look at other people that are doing, like Tessa, for example. I was actually looking through her feed the other day, and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing shot. Maybe I can do something like this. But I always make sure to put my own spin on it, because I don't want my content to end up looking exactly like everybody else's, because that's just a big fault purpose.
I also think it's, for me, mostly the community. I like having, also it's helpful for us just because I have friends who are like, hey, I just worked with this brand. I think you'd be a good fit. Do you want me to contact them for you? And I'm like, oh, yes, and then we do the same. So it also, we can grow each other, and I think that's such a big help when there's so much competition, you know.
Any other questions? Yes,
When you guys go to events or installations for brands, is there anything that you find to be really helpful to kind of lend that brand attribution to your content that you capture there? Like, if you go to an event, sometimes it's shooting pictures of yourself or people with other influencers, and it's hard to identify what the brand is that's hosting the event. If there's something you'd like to use.
Okay, so I actually go to a lot of events here in New York, and even though they don't ask, or most of them won't ask for me to do anything, I do it based on, you know, like whether I want to form a long-term relationship with this brand. And I find like a lot of partnerships that I have gotten have been because of that. I think it's more of just kind of showing the brand like, this is what I could create for you. little like sneak peek teaser kind of deal. And that's been really helpful. It's also like allowed me to like look in the future. I do want to work with you. Here's something that I did when I was at your event. That's been very helpful. I've also like, if it's like product stuff, I ask questions, whether, you know, like how this applies, like how, and then I'll even like try to share that with the people following me so they have an idea of like what it is maybe that I would be using.
And you were kind of asking about too how to identify a brand like at the event. Okay, so I think Erin Condren actually does a really, really good job of this. If you ever look at one of their events, they kind of do like things that are very trendy at the moment, that are very, they're kind of like catnip to millennials. Like the letter balloons that say, you know, Erin Condren, they had straws that said like EC Squad on them, that type of thing, where it's like obviously you want to take a photo with a really cute straw. So when you do that, then your audience is still seeing the brand kind of sneakily in there, but it's in a way that seems very, you know, cute and fun and approachable. I think that's really great.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi. I know that payment is very important to you guys. So when you're working with a brand, say your favorite brand reaches out, they don't have a very high budget, but you have flat rates that you work with. How likely are you willing to work with them? It's your favorite brand, but they just can't afford to pay what you request.
For me personally, I'm willing to negotiate, especially if this is a brand that I personally resonate with and that I think my audience will resonate with. If it's extremely below what my flat rate would be and it's just too much work for, you know, what they're giving me, then I may say no. Maybe we can work another collaboration out, maybe down the line. Please keep me in mind. But I'm definitely always willing to negotiate, especially with a brand that I like.
I think too, when brands come to me and they're like, our budget is way below what your ask is, I'm always willing to negotiate, always, so don't shoot your shot. But I think that part of it comes down to the brand also needing to have a little bit of flexibility, maybe with the post requirements or licensing requirements, and maybe not expecting the full like package at a severely reduced rate.
And also, let's say it's a brand, and not my favorite brand, but just a brand that doesn't have a budget that I feel is like aligned to my brand. I love their mission and I like feel passionate about getting them out there. I'm always saying like, oh, would you be willing to host a giveaway for my audience? That way there's some kind of give and take. It's not one-sided. I'm not getting anything, but my Insta friends are, and I feel like that's worth it.
That's all we have time for. Thank you guys for joining us. I'd like to introduce Katrina Campanelli, her campus's National Director of Sales and Business Development, along with our panel of leading brand marketers. And thank you guys for being with us today.
Morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great morning so far. I'm Katrina Campanelli. I'm her campus's National Director of Sales and Business Development, and I am thrilled to welcome some ladies who represent the world's leading brands, the most innovative brands when it comes to Gen Z and millennial marketing. So we'll start off with some quick introductions, and then we'll go into questions, and we'll leave a few minutes at the end for audience Q&A as well. Hi, my name is Heather Zeller, and I am the Director of PR and Corporate Communications at Fila North America.
Hi, good morning. Well, I guess it's good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charlotte Ashonit. I'm Senior Vice President of Integrated Marketing and Communications at Revlon.
Good afternoon. My name is Tammy Lee. I am on the brand team on Diet Coke at the Coca-Cola Company.
All right, so we'll start with our first question, and it is, why is the female college audience, Gen Z and young millennials, so important and attractive to you as a marketer? Let me start with you. So we've heard this a lot already, from the other panelists, but these concepts of authenticity and individuality are factors that are extremely important to this audience and that resonate with our brand specifically. For Fila, we're a 108-year-old brand. We have a really rich history in sport and in style, and we've been there for so many of these iconic moments that we can tap into, and we can talk about those experiences in a really authentic way. And I think one of the reasons that this audience is so attractive to us is they have the ability to discover the brand on their own and to truly make the brand their own. And it's this very unique mix of, authentic, but then also new and modern and fresh. And I think that's something that's very interesting. And the other thing for us too, for Fila, we don't have a celebrity face of the brand. To us, that celebrity is the brand. It's Fila, and what we've had a lot of success in speaking to this generation over the last couple of years is because of that peer-to-peer influence, which is also something we've heard a lot about. We've been organically able to reach, what we refer to as those first adopters, and they've ultimately become our brand evangelists and our ambassadors.
Hi, and for Revlon, obviously being in college is really a formative time in your life, and everyone is, really reaching proper adulthood. So with beauty products, there's so many different moods in your life, and most women today are multifaceted. So you have your different lifestyle choices, options, and you want to have different looks. So for Revlon, it's super. We do look at you, this audience, as an important target for us because you also have the opportunity to influence beauty trends, peer-to-peer. You give advice. You create new things, which is really important. And I think that, during college years is when you become more experimental, you start forming relationships with other people, you start feeling inspired and getting inspired and being inspiring. So definitely we look at you as a very important market.
I think we're going to hear a lot of the same trends here, but Diet Coke, we're really excited, and I'm really lucky to have a brand that has so much history behind it, and there's so much love and passion for the brand, but what's inherent in having a lot of history is that it potentially ages the brand. It's been around for a long time, and we know that in order to continue to have long-term success, we need to start recruiting the next generation of drinkers into our brand. We love our core targets, but we know they're also beginning to age even out of the entire SSE or soda category. So something needs to change, something needs to be different. To address your second question on the female demographic, well, Diet Coke, we're actually not specifically focused on just the female demographic. We know it's critically important, but we also have a perception issue that Diet Coke is a beverage for the female audience. Fun fact, it's not true. It's actually a pretty even split between men and women, but we do know that we need to focus on the right people to attract people into the brand. We want to have people who look like you, who feel like you, act like you, drinking the brand so that you start to see the brand that it's a brand for you. So identifying those trendsetters and being the ones to really carry along that message, that's important to us, no matter who you are.
Thank you. So Tammy, let's start with you for the next question. We're curious to know, with the oldest Gen Zers now being 23, how are you adapting your strategy from that millennial to that Gen Z? What's working and what have you found to really work for the brand?
Yes, so very relevant question for Diet Coke today. For those who don't know, which may be the majority of you in the room, Diet Coke went through this huge overhaul in 2018. We're calling it the Diet Coke recap, where we knew we had to do something drastically different, bring new news to the category in order to revitalize our brand. So what that meant was completely new visual identities, completely new packaging, new bold flavor innovation, and of course, new messaging and programming. What birthed was our Because I Can campaign, which was a full 360 multifaceted campaign really targeted towards the Gen Z millennial audience. And the Because I Can campaign, complete shift from where we used to be. If you think Diet Coke, we used to be very Hollywood glam, very, we partnered a lot with A-list celebrities. I think Taylor Swift was our main face a couple years ago. and that's completely been changed. We needed to adapt a new unapologetic tone to layer on top of the witty attitude that you knew that Diet Coke always had. In terms of messaging, I mean, that tone would come across, and it was a complete shift. And back to my earlier point, we needed to start talking to people who represented the people that we wanted to start bringing into the brand. So that meant real people, less glam, real grit, real scenarios, and I think that's really starting to come to life this year. Just for as an example, one of our TV spots is literally featuring a freshman in college running a grilled cheese joint out of his dorm room in order to put himself through college, which, I mean, it's a real scenario, it's a side hustle, and I mean, I think it's relatable.
We have a lot of alignment. You use the word unapologetic, which actually is a word really attributed to Revlon. Our tagline is live boldly. So we believe, so our voice is very strong, confident, unapologetic. It's a woman who is the truer she to herself, and who has respect for herself. So in terms of the Gen Z versus millennial, we actually don't change the way we speak. For us with Revlon, we are an 87-year-old company, and we are one voice. So we feel that when we speak to everyone, it has a very inclusive dialogue, and we want to express that we encourage everyone to feel that they can live their life in the boldest way. And that doesn't mean necessarily meaning you have to wear the most colorful, outrageous makeup. It means that you have the confidence to express yourself in your own way. And being bold means that you could just wear no makeup one day or with really a great pair of shoes. So with that, we really, we don't tailor our messaging to different audiences. And in fact, we don't really always look, we of course consider demographics, but we also look at psychographics. So what people's values are, what their behaviors are. I mean, you could be a 45-plus-year-old woman, but still feel in your heart like a 23-year-old and still wear like trendy clothes, etc. So with makeup and beauty, we feel that one voice works.
Yes, so again, we definitely have a lot of overlaps in the luxury brands, but for us, I'll go back again to the idea of authenticity, because I think with Gen Z and millennials, that's really what, building that foundation is what fosters their trust and their loyalty in a brand. And I think a distinction between those two, talking specifically to influencer marketing, because that's something that has been working really well for us, is, millennials tended to be a little bit more starstruck and, the influencers that are having an impact on them. Whereas Gen Z wants to see, as we've heard often, real people who share the same beliefs, the same struggles, the same values. They want to see their friends up there. So that's something that we've definitely been focused on. We heard from one of the influencers earlier. We've worked with the Her Campus team as well. So we're just trying to, identify all of those areas where we can cut through that clutter for influencers. And I think one of the other interesting distinctions between Gen Z and millennials too is, Gen Z really doesn't pledge their allegiance to one singular brand. They like what they like, they want what they want, they're gonna wear what they like, and that's something else that works really well for us and aligns with us, because for Fila, we wanna be in your closet, we wanna be a part of your rotation, we want you to wear the product, like the product, style it how you like, add your own individual spin, but pair it with other brands, pair it with a high-end brand, pair it with another brand, just make it distinctively you. So again, going back to those, authentic and individualistic qualities is I think what we put a focus on.
Great, thank you. So on that note, one of the attractive things about this audience, whether it's Gen Z, millennial, or just your new point of entry, is knowing that they are making that new purchase decision, that it's a long-term play. The goal is for it to stick with them for life. So how do you as a marketer measure the value of a new customer, especially for that Gen Z customer as well?
Well, I think we know this group has a lot of purchasing power. We also know that they're extremely committed. So once they find a brand, that they are loyal to, they're likely going to remain loyal to that brand, and they're going to continue to purchase it, and they're going to organically promote it if it's something that they
like. And I think a lot of that, though, what's important for marketers is building that brand experience for them. We know that they're digital first, everything, they're online across multi-channels, but I still think, they are visiting stores and they're shopping, so extending that digital experience into real life too, and just making sure that at all points, when you're telling your brand story, you're hitting all of those individual touch points.
Hi, and yes, for beauty especially, Revlon's a very accessible brand, so, we're affordable, and we know that people like to experiment a lot, so the loyalty factor it's very important to us, and what we find is, Revlon is a brand that has been passed down for generations, so whether your mother or your aunt or your grandmother, has been using the product for a long time, maybe you don't want to use it because you are a millennial, and we know that and Gen Z women and men like to experiment a lot. So the fact that if, in terms of how we measure it and how we look at it successfully is that if you share it, if you are talking about it, if it's sparking a conversation, for us, that is really important, and we really look at that as like a KPI to whether the product is successful or not. And we know that it's so important that to create experiences, immersive experiences. We were just at BeautyCon, which was really interesting to see, real women who pay $200 and to come in, or even more for the VIP tickets. So we try to really offer a very positive experience in order to attract new customers and or continue the loyalization of the existing customer, and or just to remind people that we're still here.
Echo again, but I think it's a great question and it's a great point. College students, this is the first time that they're truly living outside of their household. Potentially, they're buying product for the first time in their lives. And this is an opportunity for, one, they could be completely switching loyalties from what has been traditionally bought for them in the past, and an opportunity to also get a lifetime consumer, which is what my other partners have been sharing with you today. So getting people into that funnel for us is hugely important. We know once they're introduced into the brand, people love Diet Coke. People want to continue to drink it, incorporate it in their lives, share it, but getting them to try it, to consider it, that's our hardest challenge right now. And so getting them into the funnel and then converting them is what we're very, very focused on, because, these gals have said it. There's so much purchasing potential and lifetime value with the college audience.
Thank you. So Charlotte, let's start with you for the next question. There are so many different ways to market to that Gen Z woman, 18 to 24, whether it's digital, influencer, on-campus, experiential, or a cross-platform approach. What are you finding right now at Revlon or at other brands that is working and really cutting through for them?
So this is a great question. It's true, there's so many touch points now in order to attract your audience or to engage with them. I would say our cut through is mainly through social media and experiential. So as I mentioned, we recently were at BeautyCon New York. We are going to be in LA as well. And we also create experiences for, influencers, press, and even customer experiences. So what I find personally that the experiential way of working with people is the best way, because actually you get to meet the real people. I'll just talk about BeautyCon as an example. Again, these are real women who are actually buying your products, who have an interest in you. People were queuing up for 45 minutes to get shade matched. And it's so, as a marketer, to actually meet your real customer. Obviously every marketer has a target market in mind, but then when you actually meet the people and you talk to them and you hear their real stories about how they use the product or how they, makeup and beauty products make them feel, it's such an amazing, it's truly an amazing experience, and it's actually very rewarding to talk to them. And then I think that afterwards, when you give them a good experience, then there's the loyalty that comes into play, and then you actually see it instantly on social media. So for me, experiential and social media are the key.
So for Diet Coke, we know we're facing two big barriers right now. The first one being young people don't feel that it's a brand for them. To your point earlier, we're talking to consumers and literally hearing Diet Coke is a brand that my mom drinks, or now it's starting to become the drink that my grandma drinks. And so that's a huge perception barrier that we have to face. The other one, there is a taste barrier. A lot of people think that diets are less than or not as full-bodied as a regular full sugar drink would be. So there's a taste issue that we're beating up against. So to address that first concern on perception, influencers and getting people who look like you, act like you, think like you, out there drinking the brand and showing that they love the brand is hugely important to us, because that's the only way that we're going to start cracking that barrier. The second thing being taste. Having people on the ground at these college campuses is critically important for us. We've launched some great new bold tasting flavors to address the issue on taste, but no one's ever going to even think about that and trying it if there's no one in front of them to tell them that there are these great flavors, have a sip, and they taste great. So we partnered with CSM Lead Dog to help us activate at college campuses this year. It's been a huge success. I think year to date we've been at over 84 campuses, over 500,000 samples given out, which is huge for us. I mean, that's a bulk of our activation this year in experiential, and I think it's definitely going to be paying off.
So for us, again, of course, influencers, but just making sure we're identifying the right influencers. As you heard earlier, someone who is organically a fan of the brand, truly believes in the brand and everything that we offer and stand for. So that's always something that we're going to place a focus on. I think the multi-channel approach is obviously extremely important, but not just making sure you're hitting every channel, but distinguishing content for each channel. I think it's Gen Zs have, 8-second attention span, they say, so you have very limited time, to get your message across. And each platform, they're going to each platform for different reasons, so just making sure you're speaking to them in an appropriate way, but keeping a cohesive brand story. And then beyond that, to the points made earlier, experiential. One of the things that we're working on is getting out there on college campuses. For Fila, it's interesting, we don't have brick and mortar in North America, so our retail partners become extremely important to us. We tailor experiences based on retailers, creating specialized products, specialized experiences from them, so when you are going into those different places, you're seeing Fila as an extension of our larger brand story. Awesome, thank you. So a lot of the buzzwords that we're hearing that are working for you are experiential, influencer, content, social, sampling. There's so many different ways to cut through, and it's great to see that you're seeing a lot of different success. So with that brings me to my last question before the audience Q&A, and that is, what is the most exciting new marketing trend that you've seen recently? This can be something that came from your brand or something that came from a different brand or vertical. So I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're looking for in terms of a marketing trend, but something that I've been following in a completely different area that I find fascinating is actually the world of esports, because it's an audience, the audience is growing tremendously, especially among the younger generation. There's very interesting opportunities on the marketing front. There's team sponsorships, player sponsorships, Twitch integrations, stadium events, and a lot of these esports leagues are actually operating like professional franchises. So it's something that's quickly growing, and I know we're keeping an eye on because we find it very interesting. And beyond that, just seeing how the esports world is kind of seamlessly integrating with the world of traditional sports. In the simplest form, we have professional athletes who are also gamers, who are playing games, in the locker room and in their hotel rooms. And it's just a whole different path that's very unique, that's been bubbling up really, really fast. So for me personally, it's something that I find interested in, and I know that we're definitely keeping an eye on.
Actually say I wish wasn't a trend and I hope becomes the norm is the diversity and inclusion that you now see in beauty. And what I think is wonderful is actually seeing the rise of the male blogger and vlogger as well, and the whole gender fluidity of males wearing makeup. So I'll reference again BeautyCon, where it was really interesting to see actually a lot of guys there wearing full makeup, really owning it, really proud. And we've worked with influencers like Mac Daddy and James Charles that's performed really well. But also for Revlon, we really pioneered inclusivity. I mean, we were the first beauty brand to have an African American model, a Chinese model. Right now we have our Live Boldly tribe, which consists of Ashley Graham, who in the press is deemed as the first plus size model ever to get a beauty contract. And we have Atwa Boa, who she's a mixed race model, she's extremely activist with her Girls Talk community. And again, I applaud the other beauty companies, even, CoverGirl, they have everyone from Issa Rae to Elon Musk's mother, who is 80 years old. So I think the whole inclusivity of and diversity of every shape, size, color, ethnicity, age group, I think is a really wonderful thing. It's considered a trend, but as I say, I really hope that one day it's just going to be the norm.
Yeah, on that point of esports, I think it's fascinating that colleges now are offering scholarships, in order to go play on their esports team in school. So huge trend and really fascinating. A lot of opportunity there. I'm gonna agree with exactly what was just said. I love and I'm so fascinated by how much purpose marketing there is out there. I mean, maybe even taking it a step further, hopefully, beyond just diversity and inclusion, to actually brands going out there, taking a stand on something. Maybe it's not the brand, maybe it's the CEO. It's the companies that are now being held accountable for taking a stand, making statements, and showing progress on either social issues, sustainability, or what have you. I think that's a huge change from traditional companies, particularly CPG CPG companies. So it's huge. It's risky, definitely. I mean, it's a big move for a lot of these companies to do. I echo the point that I hope it's not going to be a trend, that it's going to be something that becomes sustainable. It's going to be a reflection of where we are today. But especially as Gen Z, I mean, people are not just expecting inclusion nowadays, they're expecting much more, and they're expecting brands to actually be out there and put a stake in the ground.
Amazing, great trends. So with that, we'll audience for any questions. Yes.
Do you do your influencer strategy in-house, or do you typically work with agencies, and what are the pros and cons to both?
So the question was, do you typically do your influencer strategy in-house, or do you use an agency for that, and what are the pros and cons for both?
We sort of do a mix of both. Lately we have been working with external agencies just because, that is a forte, and to be able to cut through the clutter and find exactly who we're looking for, can be difficult within our day-to-day. So we sort of set those parameters of exactly what we want, and then we'll turn to them for help there too. And again, what's interesting for us is, the influencer piece is also very important in terms of our retail partners. So we have to identify influencers across a lot of different verticals, and that fit into, a lot of different areas. So it typically is a mix.
Hi, and I would echo the same, that it's a mix, although we mainly do it in-house, and I'd say that most beauty brands these days are growing their influencer marketing teams. Right now, I have 2 full-time people on my team dedicated to influencer marketing, but it's such a big part of the communications mix now, because you have macro, you have micro, you have nano influencers to look at. So in-house we typically set the strategy, and we will use certain tools. So for beauty, we have things like Octoly or Influencer or Tribe, and that takes a lot of time to identify the appropriate influencers, and I really encourage my team to actually build the relationships in-house. I mean, directly, but from our in-house team. However, on agencies, when you're asking what's the plus and minus, the thing is, what's great about working with an agency is that there's a lot of paperwork involved, and there's a lot of times for negotiation. And there's with paperwork comes legal terms and conditions, which is a full-time job. So this is where I oftentimes like to outsource to an agency, knowing if I have to work with, especially macro influencers, that they're able to take care of everything for us. But of course, it's very much a partnership because we have to approve things, and we always vet the influencers. But the agencies do a great job in terms of getting it done for you.
You're gonna get tired of me saying this. Very much the same. It's a mix, but I mean, right now we mostly rely on external agencies to help us with this work. It is very complex, and we want to be able to use their network to reach beyond what we would normally get within the company. With that said, we have a great process or organization in place where all of our agencies are very close-knit and working together in order to see where we can scale and get some efficiencies from. So we might be using an external agency for influencers, but then bring every social element in-house. And then we're potentially seeing if we can share talent, share different efficiencies in order to make it a little bit more of a fluid process. But yeah, it's a mix.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. And now I'd like to introduce Linda, her campus co-founder, president, and publisher, to present her campus media solution.
Thank you so much. So I know that you all, sorry about this. It's really cute to wear your jacket with how your arms through it. But it's hard to do anything. So I'm going to get you all out of here by noon. That's my promise to you. So I will not talk for more than 10 minutes or 12 minutes, I think I have. But I hope that you learned a lot today. I hope that you are going to leave today with actionable insights that you can take and translate into new strategies, and hope you can wow your teams and come in as a Gen Z expert. That's the goal, right? So what I want to talk to you about is not why you should work with our campus, but rather what we've learned in the last 10 years of our campus that's made us a leader with this audience that you can translate into your companies and your strategies, and then send you all on your way at the end. So as we've gone over today, we now live in a Gen Z world. I think that we were just feeling like we really understood the millennial generation, and hopefully all of you are here, you're at the forefront, you're at the cutting edge, you get that Gen Z is who you need to be talking to. But there are a lot of people who are like, wait, are Gen Zs like babies? Yes, they're babies, and they're also 22. They're also in college. So right now, when you think about who college students are, it's our first cohort of Gen Z adults. And as we learn, Gen Z has some similarities to millennials. They both like candles and face masks and millennial pink. But there are also some things that are really different. They care much more about social causes, especially the environment. They want to make sure they're aligning with brands that share their missions and their values. They're kind of over the whole celebrity influencer thing. So it's less Kim Kardashian and more of that girl that they went to college with who now has the best style and has 10,000 followers. So how do you make sure that your strategies are updated and are not just a repeat of what you've been doing in the past? If you've been paying attention at all, you know that the future is female, or as Shelley said earlier, the future is feminine. And we at her campus, or anyone that's working with Gen Z, has the females of the future. So how do you really think about this next generation, capturing them and aligning your brand with them to create true brand loyalists? So there are 19.9 million college students in the United States. Of that 19.9, 11 million are women. So starting with Gen Z and starting at the end of the millennial generation, it's the first generation where women are outnumbering men when it comes to bachelor's degrees and graduate degrees. So how do we make sure that we are taking this incredibly powerful generation of women and making them brand advocates, or making sure that you're speaking to them in their language? As we know, 70 to 80%, I think Shelley said earlier, 85% of purchasing decisions are either made by women or directly influenced by women over their lifetimes. So if you're thinking about young women right now, you're thinking about entry point consumers, you're thinking about consumers whose loyalty is up for grabs,
We like calling college students brand new adults. And there are some things that they're gonna work with that are their parents' brands. They have sensitive skin. They're gonna use the laundry detergent that their mom did. Maybe they're just like, I just need to buy the cheapest thing now, but they're setting brand preferences for, but when I get my first paycheck, I know I've made it when I buy method to clean my kitchen, right? Instead of whatever the store brand is. Or I know I've made it when I buy my first Volvo or whatever that car is, rather than the beater that I've been driving since high school. So how do you make sure that your brand is cool? How do you make sure that your brand is one that they're gonna say, oh my gosh, when I'm hungry, I grab a Kind Bar. When my birth control fails, I go to Plan B, right? When I want shoes, I want Steve Madden shoes. How do you make sure that that is where they gravitate towards? So what we've developed over the last 10 years is a very large footprint within the Gen Z space. So we've developed a network that has 34 million monthly unique visitors. There's obviously duplication because we more than represent the entirety of all college women in the country. We have 250 million monthly content views across our platforms, and we have on-campus chapters at over 380 colleges and universities. Those campus chapters are the voice of college women at those schools. Think of a college newspaper, a sorority, the marketing club had a baby. That would be our campus chapter. 13,400 student contributors, and our micro influencer network with 4,000 members in it. So our footprint has really grown in a lot of big DMAs. These are our campus chapters. This isn't one, this represents bundles of campus chapters, and then you can see the footprint of where we have members of the Influencer Collective across the Midwest, the Northeast, the West Coast, Texas, which likes to think of itself as its own area of the country, and the Southeast. So what works? Like why? How? When media brands are shuttering or shrinking or doing layoffs, how are we growing? How are we thriving? How are we continuing year over year for a decade to capture the attention of this highly elusive demographic? So the first thing is authenticity. And this is what I want you to take away for your brands, is that you have to tell an authentic story. Maybe you have a really cool founding story. Maybe you need to reinvent yourself. But what is it behind your brand? What's the story behind your brand? It's no longer good enough with Gen Z to just say like, we have a good product. Like, okay, but what makes it good? What makes it right for me? And where did it come from? So this picture on the left was taken 10 years ago. It's me, Steph, and Annie. I think it's at the library, the Widener Library at Harvard, when we entered the business time competition with the idea for our campus. Since then, we've grown over the last 10 years. We're